All right. It better be working this time. I swear it better work. How come every time we get ready to talk about some real stuff, that's when the stuff want to stop working? Let me get a sound check in here because I need to. We ain't about to do this all night. Can I get somebody in the chat to tell me that the sound is either working or it is not? Somebody say something. Okay, we're good. Thank God. Man, I hate when that happens because then it's like half my algorithm is gonna be still going to the old video. Whatever. Yeah, there's something that keeps short circuiting with my stuff, but whatever. Anyway, like I said, we are getting ready to talk about Mitch McConnell. I'm gonna still talk my trash. Like, man. Okay. Anyway. Oh Lord, okay, now I got people joining the Zoom. Okay. All right. So anyway, like we were saying, Mitch McConnell. Like I said, Father Time may be calling him on home soon. I don't know, but he checked himself into the hospital because he was having flu-like symptoms. And the thing about Mitch McConnell is Mitch McConnell has already kind of stepped down from some positions. He's no longer the Senate Majority Leader, and he also had announced that he was retiring after this term. His term ends in January of 2027, right? And so a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, well, if he steps down or something else happens, this would be great because they can just, the Democratic governor can just throw in and pick a new senator. I said, oh, no, that's not how this works anymore. Because please understand, the House Majority Leader at the time, Stephen Rudy, had sponsored a bill that denies, the opportunity for the governor of Kentucky to just pick a replacement. And so what ended up happening is, as they started to realize that McConnell's health was getting really crazy in the last few years, they knew that if he were to transition as far as die in office or have to step down, the governor gets to pick who continues that term or who fills that position for the rest of the term, right? Now, we saw that they recently elected a Democratic governor, so everybody started jumping like, nope, we're not having it. So they put in legislation that made it where there would have to be a special election in order to pick that next senator. So instead of people thinking, oh, Governor Beshear would just get to go and pick and select the next senator that would replace McConnell if McConnell were to be 6 feet under or have to step down for medical reasons. Oh, no, it's not that. There would have to be a special election. Now, the governor tried to veto that bill, and his reasoning was, y'all do this every other time with everything else. So why is it a problem now that I'm in office? I know what you guys are trying to do, but unfortunately, they had such a supermajority in the state legislation that they overrode that veto. And so, as far as everything that's happening, like I said, the governor doesn't get to pick that. So whoever ends up filling McConnell's seat, if McConnell is out of the picture, they will hold that seat until January of 2027. And then there will still be an election in November for what takes place after January 2027. So people in Kentucky, buckle up. Y'all are in for a journey. So just understand, y'all got a lot that's about to be going down. So lock in with your politics. We'll see where that goes. As far as McConnell, like I said before, he doesn't get a lot of sympathy from me. Right? And to me, as wild as things are, there are lots of power players behind the shenanigans of today. And he's one of the pioneers of that. We know he stole a Supreme Court seat. When it was time for Barack Obama to pick his nomination, all of them. What's the man's name? McConnell was pretty much like, oh no, we can't have Supreme Court pick this close to the election. We just can't do it. Only for them to do it and put Amy in when it was close to the 2020 election. So there's that. But yeah, so stole the Supreme Court seat, had 2 opportunities to convict Orange Man in the Senate during the impeachment hearings. He purposely led the GOP to not convict. Now, the first impeachment with the quid pro and all that stuff with the call with Ukraine, sure, maybe there's a bit more leverage where it's kind of like, I think they can let him slide on that. But that January 6th crap, we all watched what happened, right? We were there. Hell, we were on live in real time. I was 7 blocks from where everything was going, and I was telling y'all what was happening, right? We watched everything happen. And then in that moment where there was an opportunity to convict, they didn't convict. When there was an opportunity to put in legislation that man couldn't run anymore for office, wouldn't do it, right? And so for me, it's like he had that going on, and then he just played into a lot of the foolery to maintain power. And the challenge that he's run into now, because I think he's seen the light, he's trying to make better choices, is he ushered in or helped usher in, like he, Newt Gingrich, a lot of these folks, they helped usher in this nonsense. And now that he realizes that the can of worms is out and there's just entirely too much going on, and he wants to kind of put the worms back in the can, it's too late. Because I noticed when they were trying to confirm RFK, he was the sole GOP senator that was like, nope, not at all. And that's because, remember, McConnell had polio at one point. He understood what it was like to be on that receiving end of catching something or having something that can become debilitating. And he understood the dangers of having somebody that doesn't really believe in science being in charge of our health, right? But now it's too late. You've opened that Pandora's box of chaos, and you put all of that, you played these different games. Y'all did all these different political just bits of silliness for years and years, and that's what helped to usher in the Tea Party. That's what pretty much helped formulate the early beginnings of the MAGA movement. Y'all kept giving Orange Man all kind of edges and inches to do his nonsense, and so here we are. And so now you're trying to backtrack and undo and do right by the folks, and it's a little late for that, right? So somebody like him, I don't have a whole lot of empathy for. I don't have a lot of nice things to say. I just think a lot of the problems that we ran into and the things that we could have had, he was one of the main people in the way, especially during those Barack Obama years. He fought that man tooth and nail on everything. Things that we're mad about now that would have made society a bit better had those things been put into legislation and passed years ago. He's one of the people that stood in the way, not because it was bad policy, not because it was against his morals, but just because he chose party over country. He chose power over country. He chose power over party. They just let anything go, right? Absolutely crazy. Anyway, so there's that. Let me read a few comments while people find their way back here, because unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people still on the old link, unfortunately. Isaiah Video said, happy 40th Control. Yes, we love the Control album. Yes, don't we? If I had to rank that out of her albums, I know it's in her top 5. I think that's my 3rd favorite album. Velvet Rope from Rhythm Nation always go back and forth with me, and I think Control would be my 3rd. All right. Somebody said Mitch McConnell, Strom Thurmond, light. Exactly. Same energy. Somebody said absolutely speak on it, King Calvin. Mitch is a part of the problem today. Hey, didn't realize you were still live. Yes, I just said it had to be a new link. So unfortunately, I think a lot of people are sitting on the old one waiting for it to magically turn on. Just know from now on, if we ever have a moment on live where either the sound goes out or something goes down, if I do this, that means go ahead and close the link out. I'm going and I'm re-uploading a new live. I might have to just announce that at the beginning from now on too. A mess. Somebody said Calvin Abar pulled the plug. I ain't even got to Nicki yet. I haven't even said anything about her yet. She's at the very end of this live, by the way. Okay, next thing, Kennedy Center. As you know, the Kennedy Center is actually, was one of my favorite places here in DC. I have done a handful of events with the Kennedy Center back from when I worked with the kids. And when I think of just all the cool memories that have taken place there, where I've had some of my choreography and stuff performed there, I've directed a few choirs and not orchestras, but like choral groups that were singing with the orchestra, all youth, right? I've done a few fundraising events and stuff for community centers in the area through the Kennedy Center. My name is tied to a few things. I've loved that place. And then I've gone there many, many times for different shows and stuff. And so the heartbreak of hearing that it's going to close for 2 years because they needed renovations so bad. What hasn't this man destroyed? First of all, the Kennedy Center doesn't need any kind of crazy renovations because one, the Kennedy Center has always been very well kept. And plus, it's not even that old of a venue. But, the thing is, he has never even attended a show or a ceremony there. He has never ever been to Kennedy Center Honors, but has the nerve to talk about, it's just, decrepit and dilapidated, and we need to go and do some serious work there. We got to change it. It's please. And at this point, we've seen his track record when it comes to the kind of decor that he wants. He just wants to put that tacky looking gold everywhere. And I don't know what that is, but man, we see your taste in everything. We've seen what you've done to the White House. And so it was crazy because when he started talking about, oh, it's just the edifice is just so down bad. I'm like, not the Kennedy Center I be going to, because we be in there with our chinchillas and our minks. I don't got no chinchilla and mink, but I'll pretend. But they walk in there all fancy and walking in there for the opera, for the shows. And I remember I took my godmom to see Diana Ross there. That was a great time. Now she had on her mink chinchilla furs and stuff like that. I just had on a suit. I remember I went and saw Maxwell with the National Symphony Orchestra. That was fun because I got to put on like a nice black tied suit and look all grown and sexy. Like, I've had a great time at that spot. But I think what really sucks is the Kennedy Center employs over 3,000 people, as far as because they have 1,000 guest artists that are doing residencies and different things there. And then you actually have their actual staff, whether it's the ushers, the people that work with the food service, the people that are crew, people that do lighting, that do maintenance, that do the landscaping, that work the fountains, that the parking, the security. All of these people, unfortunately, are now going to be unemployed, not because the building needs major renovations, but because they just want to do some nonsense. Because the reality is nobody's going there. Attendance is way, way down. They can barely sell out anything. A lot of the performers of the acts have pulled the plug on whatever shows they were going to be doing. They, found other venues. And that's really what the issue is. The money is drying up because, remember, Trump nominated himself to be on the board and put his own folks in there. And they decided that the purpose of the Kennedy Center and the focus would be conservative Christian entertainment and family values, which none of them live by. But that's what has become the Kennedy Center. And so, and the thing that I'll say is, normally when you do these kind of renovations, you can do it in phases. That's why I don't understand why the whole thing needs to close. They're renovating Capital One Arena right now in phases, where there's certain parts that they're just going piece by piece, rather than just tearing down the basketball arena and rebuilding it or closing it for a year and a half for renovations. They are doing it in phases. They're basing it on when there's different sports seasons and different concerts, and this is getting changed and that's getting changed. There's a way to renovate that, because if you've never been to the Kennedy Center, it's this large building that has a bunch of theaters and different floors and halls and banquet halls and stuff like that. You could do room by room and do whatever you need to do without closing the entire operation. So it's a nonsense. But, the thing is, this man is just crazy. And I think he is just, in addition to just whatever vengeance tour he's on, anything he wants to do right now, he's signing up to do. Like, I don't know if you've seen, he's going to be doing the Indy 500 in DC, where they are going to block off streets in DC, and we're going to have NASCAR racers driving through the streets of DC. If you've ever been to DC, you understand that DC's infrastructure, as far as the roads, are not really car friendly to begin with. So now, I'm not trying to put this in the universe, but I already see this happening. One of these cars are going to be going 120 miles an hour. They're going to hit the curb wrong, and they're going to crash into one of these federal buildings, or they're going to crash into somebody's high-rise apartment, or they're going to crash into something crazy. Yeah, I see it coming. And at the same time, he's like, I'm also building a 100,000 person stadium for not just the Indy thing, but his UFC event that's going to be at the White House, because he's also having a UFC fight at the White House. And so he's building this 100,000 person or 100,000 seat venue, which I'm like, when? Because again, all this is supposed to take place for the 250th anniversary of the United States. And somehow he's going to have this 100,000 seat venue ready by July. All right. I don't know where we are living, or it's a mess out here. Just, I can't. If y'all don't get this crazy man out of office already. And I already said, if y'all don't ever use the 25th Amendment on Orange Man, just go ahead and throw that amendment away. Because if they never use it on Orange Man, I don't know what else would possibly need to take place for that to be used on somebody else. Just pull that on out the Constitution. Because if they haven't used it by now, they're not using it. Okay? My goodness. All right. I want to read a few comments, and then this next segment's a little bit longer, so let me just read some comments first. I'm so annoyed about this stupid sound that went out, because then I got to go back and edit the other one, and that means if I edit it, that means the live chat replay disappears. Whatever. Somebody says, stop calling out your MacBooks, please. The old Mac and the new Mac both locked up your lives. The old one is down here, right? The old one is actually working fine. I might have to bring it back, because this new one, I don't know what this thing is doing. Yeah, there's some settings in the old one that have not been able to transfer over to the new one, as far as like my recording studio. So when there's certain plugins that I want to use for like different instruments and stuff, I'll refer back to the old MacBook. Anyway, somebody said, just remember those names when election time comes up, and and who they supported. Yeah, we'll see if God willing we get to have an election. Somebody says, "Sorry, Calvin, those memories are gone now, thanks to you know who." Yeah, well, the good thing is Kennedy Center films every. Well, it depends. If you do events at the Millennium Stage, which is not one of the big theaters, but it's like an open spot to the public. Anything that takes place on the Millennium Stage is filmed. So even like in the podcast where I told you about the kid that unfortunately passed away, when he passed, I was able to get his footage and his video and share it with the family, and they were able to utilize that during the funeral service. And if you followed me way back when, I actually posted the clip and shared it when I did one of my end of the year reviews. I don't remember which year it was, but yeah, so we'll see. Now I do have video of most of the stuff that I've been a part of, not all of them, but most of them. So that's pretty cool. Somebody said, "Ill Mac, Windows all day." I just like the Mac because it works better with the recording equipment as far as the studio and stuff. Let's see. Somebody said they're not going to invoke or do anything. Yeah, I don't think they are either. What up, Very Purple? Somebody said, "I wish that someone had really listened to the Orange One's nephew who wrote a book about his uncle. Not everyone in the family, speaking of Trump, has never supported him and still don't." The challenge, though, I think people know exactly what they were getting with him, and they didn't care. That's the more concerning part. Honestly, if this were the ideal country and people had the moral compass that they think they have, once he was talking about grabbing by the you know what, that should have been the end of his campaign and his political career. And instead, it elevated him, right? And made him almost a deity amongst his hardcore supporters. So, there's that. Okay, so the next thing I want to jump into, let's get to Steve Bannon, because I want y'all to just take note of just a lot of the nonsense and shenanigans that's taking place. So let us go to the clip once I actually get it open. Yeah, see, once the live went down, all my stuff got all out of whack. Where's that folder at? Okay, let's try this again. All right. Let me do this one more time. All right. Let me make sure y'all can see this. Hold on. And y'all cannot. So let me do this again. God dang it. Okay, let's get some sound in here. Okay, so I want y'all to watch this clip really quick, and then we are going to have a quick discussion. Take note of what he states here, and I want you to pay attention. Shit, hold on, sorry. Let's turn this mic down some. All right. Oh my God. You're damn right. Have ice surround the polls. Hold on, I gotta get this right. I'm sorry. Let's move this sound down. Okay, try this again. Boom. All right. You're damn right. We're gonna have ice surround the polls come November. We're not gonna sit here and allow you to steal the country again. And you can whine and cry and throw your toys out of the pram all you want, but we will never again allow an election to be stolen. All right, let me make sure y'all could even hear that. Could you guys hear that? Somebody in the chat, I just want to make sure y'all heard it before if I need to play it again. Were you guys able to hear that? Somebody said, has he shot? Okay, good, y'all can hear it. Perfect. Okay, so that clip, ladies and gentlemen, that's recent, right? And so he's already pretty much stated that the next move is ICE is going to start working the elections too, right? They're going to start working these elections. They're going to start being at the polls. They're going to be like the poll watchers. And we already know where this is going. Now, the question that I always have is they keep making this narrative about these stolen elections and stolen elections. If they stole the election in 2020, according to them, they are convinced that Biden and Kamala stole the election. If they stole the 2020 election, why wouldn't they steal the 2024 election? Why would they sign up to lose, right? If they had all of the magic and know-how to somehow steal the 2020 election, which was not stolen, why would they allow Orange Man to get back into office in 2024, knowing that that was going to be the vengeance presidency? So make it make sense, right? And the thing is, Orange Man and crew have been claiming that the election has been stolen even before he ever became president, right? That's one of the things that he's been doing. So who remembers these? I have two examples I want to share with you guys. Example number one. Now look at the date. This is October 17th of 2016. Election wasn't for a few weeks. Of course, there is large-scale voter fraud happening on and before Election Day. Why do Republican leaders deny what is going on? So naive. So, all right, he already starts making these claims that there's all this election fraud and voter fraud, and it doesn't stop there because there was a pattern that continues. And then we get some more of it. All right, then we get the election is being rigged by the media, pushing false and unsubstantiated charges and outright lies in order to elect crooked Hillary. So the thing was this. He, according to the polls and according to the media at the time, he was not favored to win at all, right? It was supposed to be a blowout. Hillary was, based on what they thought and based on polling, Hillary was supposed to blow him out of the water. And he knew that. Now, he is somebody who does not like to lose. He is somebody that does not like to look like he is not in control of anything. And so he had been starting the narrative of everything being stolen even before the election as a buffer. That way, if he had lost, he could say the election was stolen, or they did all these different things and all kind of scameration and so on. So, and what's very interesting is, you know, he wins the first time. We hear no mention of fraud ever again until 2020. The only time he brought it up was when they said, well, what about the 3 million people that Hillary beat you by in the popular vote? And what did he say? Oh, those are all illegal immigrants. They all in California, a bunch of Mexicans. You know, the Mexicans came across the border and illegally voted and went back to Mexico and went back to the Mexico City and hometown and everything else. But they took the time to, you know, trek all the way across Mexico. Mind you, Mexico City is not at the border. It's further down. They walked all the way through the deserts and mountains of Mexico. They crossed the Rio Grande. They walked all through Nevada and crossed into California. And then they went to those voter polls and they voted. And then they went back to Mexico, right? They were so pressed to make sure that election, you know, they would cheat. But don't worry, it didn't happen because he still won, right? The thing is that I want people to kind of get out of is this notion of thinking that people who are undocumented are voting. They don't. Most people in this country who are undocumented are not trying to be discovered. They don't want their names tied to anything. They don't want a paper trail, especially right now in this current era of ICE. People are not trying to be seen. A lot of folks don't even have bank accounts because they don't want anything official. Those that have jobs that are doing work, they're doing stuff under the table. There's a reason why you see a lot of these families living 2 and 3 families in a 3-bedroom apartment. They are laying low. So this idea of thinking that people are going to out themselves by trying to rig a political election in which they really don't really benefit from anyway, because technically they're not citizens. And so depending on who's in office, it's either going to be worse for them or more worse, right? Yeah, the reality is nobody is breaking their necks to do that. But for some reason, that's the narrative that they want to keep kind of pushing out there. And this kind of goes back to even what happened with Fulton County last week, where they had the raid, where, again, because Orange Man won't let it go, he decided, I'm going to send the FBI to Fulton County, Georgia, to investigate the fraud. Can we be serious here? Fulton County is a heavy blue district. Why? Because it's a heavy district of Democratic voters, a large Black population, a population of educated, you know, people in the demographics as far as how they vote. And so, yes, they are a strong blue hole. So don't you think that if you wanted to make the argument of fraud in Georgia, that maybe you pick a county that might be more of a swing county, or a county that has been historically, you know, dark, strong red, and then somehow they went blue? That would make more sense than to go to the obvious and say, wait, y'all must have cheated. That's like looking at the state of California and watching California go blue and then saying, oh, no, they cheated. Like, be for real, right? And so that's the nonsense. Let me see what else we got here. The other thing I was going to say, too. Oh, and then what was so funny, they couldn't even do the raid right. Like, I was watching this clip. Let me pull this clip up, too. I'm just like, y'all can't even do, like, corruption properly. All right, so let me share this here. Dun, dun, dun. Let's make sure our sound is working. All right. Now, this is the actual raid, right? These are the officials going into the polling place, and they don't have a proper warrant to come in here. And so they have to take time to decipher how they're going to move.
So we have the right to be here, and we've been very nice.
So did anybody get a physical copy of the search warrant? No. When did they get here? Just unannounced. I'm gonna try and have the names of everybody that's out here. I already know how it's gonna go, but I mean, if they refuse, that's on them. Good. All right, so we're giving very limited information.
So we just search warrant for us, like literally for the entire location.
Okay.
But now we're getting another search warrant for another location involved. So we'll have that pretty soon. So
This is all in regards to election side stuff.
where you know where we're here, right? So we can't discuss more.
I got you.
More than that, but as long as we keep, big thing is just trying to keep media. Someone let media in here and keep media clear out of here.
What's happening now is that their warrant is wrong. It had the wrong, it's not in elections possession, it's in clerk's possession, so it had the wrong department.
So on our end, nobody received a copy of.
The attorneys asked them for it, they finally gave them a copy. The attorney's like, it's wrong, so it allegedly went to the judge to update it.
What was wrong on there?
It didn't say, it just says, it says elections, which we don't have, it which they knew that before they got here.
The warrant will be amended slightly, but for all intents and purposes, what they had is what it's gonna look like. We wanted to let her facilitate us moving through the building to unlock the gates so that we don't have to breach it. I got you. One way or the other, the records are coming with us.
Okay, so again, the nonsense of the nonsense. So okay, let's go and raid the election offices from and get documents from 6 years ago because we need to prove that there's fraud. It doesn't make any sense to me because the thing is, they're doing all of this, but we actually have documented evidence of fraud, but it's not coming from the side that's being accused. It's coming from the side that, you know what I mean? Like, let's go to this next clip. Like, I got clips for days. We're going to do a little bit of watching for a minute. All right, let's go to this clip.
Video this morning that gives more insight into the investigation into attempts to overthrow Georgia's 2020 presidential election results. Take a look at this new surveillance video. It shows former Republican chairwoman of Coffee County, Kathy Latham, escorting pro-Trump operatives to the county's election office. This is on January 7th, 2021, the same day a voting system at that location was breached. The two men with Latham admitted they gained access to the voting machine through a request made by Sidney Powell. She's an attorney for former President Donald Trump. Latham is also under criminal investigation for pretending to be an elector for the 2020 election.
Okay, so that's part one. Right now, remember, that was the whole fake elector situation. Sorry about that echo, guys. This mic, I had to make it really, really hot for some reason in order to get the sound and not trip. But in that clip, it's showing that there was a public official who ends up letting the fake electors in the door to the election space so they can go and try to certify this election, create the document, and then send it over to Congress for confirmation, right? That's just how chaotic it had been. And so with that fake elector scheme, the idea was get people who go and pretend to be the electors and they make their own fake certified document that says, you know, Orange Man won. When in reality, Biden had won that state. He won in all these different states and different counties and so on and so forth. We're going to make a fake document and then we're going to try to pass it off and send it over to Congress and to the Library of Congress and boom, it's going to make everything official. So they had that taking place, right? And that happened in multiple states. It happened in Michigan. It happened in Georgia. I want to say it also happened in Arizona. And so it just a hot mess, but it doesn't stop there because we have more, right? Because I'm always going to make sure I got extra receipts here. And it got to the point where you had so many people who were elected officials even in on the scameration. All right. Next clip.
To resign after Michigan.
Let me go back. All right.
The Wyoming mayor has no plans to resign after Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel charged him with election fraud. That's as he made his first appearance in court for that case today. 13 on your side's Elena Holland explains why he isn't stepping down. Elena.
Well, Nate, Ken Vanderwood's attorney says his work as mayor is unrelated to the charges. He called the prosecution's theory, quote, completely off base. Vanderwood is one of 16 people charged in July for an alleged plot to award electoral votes from the state to former President Donald Trump. This was during the 2020 election. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel says the group secretly met in December of 2020 and signed certificates saying they are qualified electors of the state. They were not qualified electors. Then they allegedly sent the certificates to the U.S. Senate and National Archives, trying to give Donald Trump more electoral votes. In Michigan, President Joe Biden defeated Trump by more than 150,000 votes. Today, I spoke with Tracy Brain, an associate dean at Cooley Law School, an expert in election law, about how both the prosecution and defense will tackle their arguments in court.
The charge is that this was on, we knew full well that the election went to Joe Biden, and yet, right, you're sending this documentation, you're trying to commit fraud. The flip side of that coin, right, and what his lawyers will almost certainly argue is that he signed, and I can't speak for the other folks that that signed it, but that at least he signed it in good faith.
Brain says the prosecution will argue the group knew
full well. We got most of what I need. So again, now the reason that I wanted to harp on that is because going back to this conversation of the fraud, the thing that, yes, we're still live. The thing that made it so easy for Orange Man and his whole team and everybody who wants to run behind it to hop onto the allegations of all this fraud is because look who they tried to make the faces of it. Think back to when we saw Ruby Freeman and Wandrea Moss, the two black women that were the election officials, that they tried to make the face of this fraud. Like, it's easy for folks to paint a collective picture of black people being the ones to do the fraud, or now at this point, people who are undocumented being the fraudsters. Like, the notion that black people are dishonest or everybody's dishonest except for white folks. But as we look at the facts, who are the people committing the crimes in 4K on camera? You got a mayor of a town going and do the nonsense. You got whatchamacallit, Paxton, or whatever her name was. It's not Paxton, but the lady that used to wear the scarves with Orange Man all the time. All of these people who are actively going out of their way to try and undo what the people have signed up and voted for just because they didn't like the result. And then rather than taking accountability, they double down and pretend that nothing is wrong. And now, you know, we watch them still want to hold on to this narrative that there was some kind of fraud, when in reality, the fraudsters we see the fraud, but they're not acknowledging the actual fraud that's there. That's the wildest part for me. Now, I say all that to say, going back to this Steve Bannon clip in the ICE, understand that the purpose of ICE is about to shift. ICE is going to eventually just become an enforcement agency. It's not even going to be about immigration, because notice how, as we keep seeing these different situations with ICE, they're starting to shift from immigration and things with people who are undocumented to everyday citizens being harassed, to regular everyday citizens being shot or killed, to the point where it sounds like they're trying to create almost this like militia that will enforce and do all the work of whatever it is that Orange Man wants. Because also understand, ICE is more the local police departments in a lot of these cities are out-weaponed by ICE. They don't even have the same kind of equipment. Now, there's exceptions when you get to some places like a New York or an LA, or, you know, some of these larger cities that have these massive billion-dollar budgets for their police forces. But like, even with something like Minneapolis, with what was happening, the Minneapolis police, if you had to make them go toe-to-toe with ICE, the Minneapolis police lose because they don't even have the same kind of equipment. They don't have the same kind of weapon. Now, we're not trying to set up a everybody start shooting each other kind of situation, but that's the reality. And so they've kind of created a space where they can create their own almost enforcement brigade that's going to do whatever you want them to, or whatever they want them to do. And that's why you're noticing that everything's starting to become a conversation of Homeland Security or something with DHS. And so it's just really like messing up the notion of what people thought ICE once was, right? Freaking mess. And even when we're talking about the budget here, let's shift gears here. I want to just talk about like even what this budget is, because there's a bunch of things that took place. All right, let's go to this really quick. All right, so when we're talking about the budget here, how ICE grew to be the highest funded law enforcement agency, let's just look at how much has shifted here, right? This represents about $85 billion that they're now getting. If we just go back 10 years, they were only getting about $6 billion in funding. We've gone from $6 billion to 85 in total, right? And so 73 billion of that just came out of this beautiful bill that just passed, right? And so understand, I think what people need to understand when we're talking about ICE, because I do think the one thing that might actually suck are for the people who at some point worked in ICE, but were not like they weren't the people that were on the sidewalk snatching people up. You have people who work in ICE that have been there for, you know, the last decade, but their job was to inspect the ships that come into the ports and make sure there's not any illegal items and stuff that are coming to the ports. You had some people who managed security at the airports. Like that was, when you're talking about that first wave of people who worked for ICE, now it ain't all of them because you still had some snatching people out of the streets, but you have a lot of people who had office jobs who, again, their role was, again, safety with ships that were coming into the ports, anything that was coming in as far as cargo, that kind of stuff. Not going and randomly showing up at high schools and busting into daycares trying to snatch people up. And so you're starting to see just a lot of the nonsense that's there. And the other thing too, because I found this memo that I was like, I'm always find some receipts on some stuff here. One of the things that also took place is when we're talking the enforcement, there's been rules with what it is that is now deemed illegal or legal, or guidelines that, you know, they have to follow. So I ended up finding the memo. We're not going to read all of it because we'll be here all day. Anyway, this is the memo from 2021 during whatchamacallit, where this memo right here, October 27th, 2021, pretty much set a standard set of guidelines for how they're going to enforce whatever they're doing with ICE. This was supposed to ensure that when they're doing whatever they do, that people's rights are still protected, that they're infringed upon. Certain spaces, certain places, you cannot just go and just do any and everything. Actually, I'm gonna come back to that. And so we're just seeing the nonsense. I want to shift gears really quick because actually, let me read a few comments and then I'm gonna come back to that because that's gonna open a segue into this next portion, which deals with Don Lemon. Okay, let's see here. Somebody said we do not need to see him. I think that's about Bannon. Let's see. Somebody said he loves to make excuses. Of course. Oh, is this like a troll or somebody? Oh, I guess I'm popular today. Cool. All right. Somebody said check the interface or fried wire. Yeah, I think there's something that's not working properly. We're gonna figure it out. But thank you for that. Let's see. Somebody said, let's pray for Savannah Guthrie's mother. This world is nuts. Rhythm Nation is my favorite for obvious reasons. One of the Rhythm Nation twins. Oh, is this okay, if this is who I think it is, are you who I think you are? From when she brings the two girls on the stage, the two that go back to school. Kia Croft, are you who I think you are? I'm gonna find out. Just wait for that response in the chat. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for the response, yeah, as far as Savannah Guthrie, that's crazy. How do you kidnap somebody's mama? Like, that's wild to me. Hopefully everything is good. Okay, that is her. Okay, I love this channel. Okay, backstory. Actually, let me see if I can find it on YouTube while I'm talking. So, yeah, dang it, man, I'm so far off topic, but I want to stay in the moment. So you know that I'm typing at the same time. So with Janet, the Rhythm Nation album comes out. It does what it does. It has its subject matter about, the kids staying in school and being great and doing all these different things. And what ends up happening is, okay, Rhythm Nation becomes this big album. There is a reporter from the Boston Globe that doesn't quite understand the hype about the album, right? What is foot soldiers dancing in a hangar? What is that going to do to fix the problems of the world? Some other stuff like that. So when Janet was accepting one of her awards, and I found the clip. Perfect. Dang, can I get this with some good sound? We're going to try this out. Just a quick segue before I get back to where I want to go. I'm going to get this to work. Let's do this. I'm going to... Dang, this is the worst quality. God dang it. Hold on, I'm just trying a better one. All right, we just gonna have to watch the bootleg version. It's fine. Okay, folks. So I said all that to say, there's these two young ladies who had dropped out of high school, and actually, she can actually confirm this in the chat because it's actually her story. So she could probably tell the narrative better than I can. They had dropped out of high school, and what ends up happening is the music from that album inspired them to go back and finish their education and do all that. And so they kind of became kind of like a part of the national conversation around like 1990, 91-ish. And then when Janet had won an award, she ended up reading the review from this person from the Boston Globe that was talking about how, this music doesn't make a difference and blah, 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 blah. And then she highlighted the two women who, or actually they were teenagers at the time. Let's see if I can share the screen while I talk and tell this story. I gotta open it in the other thing. God darn it. All right. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated at the moment. And we're in real time. This is why it's live. All right. So anyway, she brought them on the stage and then she highlights that, okay, you talked all this trash, but honestly, the reason that I do what I do is for this very reason right here. Okay, I'm gonna just share this briefly and then we're gonna get back on topic. So bear with me while we go off subject for a quick second. I didn't know we had special guests tonight. These are the two girls, right? They went back to school, they get their lives together. I'm not gonna play the whole thing just for the sake of time. Janet ends up reading the speech, right?
Something that belongs to you because you've earned it. Your graduation.
They get their graduation diplomas. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then she ends up reading the hateration review from the Boston Globe lady.
By Robin L. Baylor. She writes, quote, I still don't understand Janet's Rhythmation video. What can she and her foot soldiers stomping in an underground industrial plant accomplish in bringing world harmony? Nothing. Well, Miss Baylor.
Okay, so beautiful, right? We love to see it. Thank you for popping on here randomly. Sorry for us going off script here, but yeah. So that's who that is. So thank you for sharing. Okay, I want to get back to where we were going with this. So the other thing too, because now we have the conversation of Don Lemon, and we can come back to that conversation once I get to the more music-oriented topics. So getting back to Don Lemon, so we saw that, you know, Don Lemon and a few other journalists had been arrested because they were reporting on one of the protests that took place in one of the churches in Minneapolis, and, you know, he had been charged. I'm going to just say this. We talked about this maybe a year ago, where we started saying the thing that was going to start taking place in this current era that we're in was that when it came to media would either be bought out or people were going to start becoming prosecuted, because that's one of the things that takes place when you got some crooked leadership in charge. Anything that's going to go against the status quo, anything that will challenge the narrative is a problem. They're going to find a way to get rid of it. And so they knew exactly what they were doing with who they chose to arrest. And notice that all 4 journalists who were arrested were Black folks. And this is one of the reasons why the notion that we've been saying in this current era, because people are still active. I know that there's a conversation that some of us are arresting, some of us are out in the streets doing whatever. But the thing is, Black folks are going to have to move a little bit differently right now, because the target is still on our backs with everything that we do. And the thing is, they know that Black journalists are not playing into the nonsense of what's happening, especially Black journalists who are not owned by legacy media, who don't have to report to a CNN or an NBC News or ABC News, who have their own platforms, who can do their own media thing so they can kind of talk about what they want to talk about the way that they want to talk about it without censoring. Those are what you call the dangerous people in media that they want to get rid of and that they want to kind of push out. And so that's what we have going there. And what's interesting with the charges is the charges are centered in the idea of infringing upon the civil rights of the people in the churches. Why I find that very interesting is that we've seen ICE go and storm church services. We've seen them storm schools. We've seen them storm all these different places. And so the idea of stating, you know, because you have things like the FACE Act, which was the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances law, which made it illegal to like block the entrances of, you know, like women's reproductive rights centers and stuff like that. And then they also had the Conspiracy Against Rights law, which was enacted after the Civil War. And it was initially designed to target vigilante groups like the Klan, right, from intimidating and preventing someone from executing their or exercising their constitutional right. And so now they're literally using that same law, those same laws, to say Don Lemon and them were impeding upon the rights of the people in the church because they were interviewing the folks of whatever was happening. I'm like, you know what? And like I said, ICE has been raiding all kind of establishments and everything else like that. So for me, I find it so interesting that that would be the conversation of, okay, the civil rights that are being violated. And that goes back to the document that I was sharing earlier from October. I was sharing it a little too early, so I want to share it again. Again, back in 2021, like we said, this memo goes out. This memo with Homeland Security explains exactly how ICE is supposed to move when they go into these different spaces, meaning y'all can't go to churches, y'all can't do this, you can't, you know, protected spaces. So a school, a preschool, a primary school, secondary school, vocational trade school, college or university, medical, mental health care facility, hospitals, doctor's offices, health clinic, vaccine testing sites, urgent care centers, sites that serve pregnant individuals, community health centers, a place of worship, religious study, whether in structure or dedicated to activities such as faith, or a temporary facility or location such as activities that are taking place. What's interesting is that was one of the first documents that was gutted and rescinded as soon as Orange Man got in office. That was one of the first things that he went and said, executive order, that's no longer the law. And that's what allowed ICE to start going into churches and just go to any business. And that's why a lot of times when people are like, oh, do you have a warrant? The ICE folks were like, F you, and keep doing whatever they're doing, because they kind of know that a lot of the protections that were once there to ensure that people's civil rights were not infringed upon are no longer there at the moment. And that it's kind of, you got to play into the game whatever ICE has. That's kind of the move that's there right now. And so it's very interesting that they would literally use that as what they're going to try to charge Don Lemon and them with. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. But I'll tell you my theory on why I think Don was one of the main targets. Remember, Don Lemon used to be on some shenanigans back in the day. He was one of the ones who I used to have to drag and cuss out on his channel every day, because anytime there was a conversation about police brutality, anytime there was a conversation about a lot of the things taking place, he was in the way. He was one of the ones saying that we were responsible for our own deaths by the police. He was one of the ones that kind of moved as a mouthpiece for white supremacy for years, until he got his wake-up call. He went to Ghana, he saw the enslavement castle and got his wake-up call, and then all of a sudden he saw the light. Now the thing is, they love for you to be a token. They love for you to be a mouthpiece for white supremacy, but they hate it when you flip the script and now you start working actively against whatever it is that they're trying to do. So that to me makes him an even bigger target, because it's like, how dare you? They're looking like we made you into what you are, and for the last 10 years, you've been, doing all this left-wing, woke, black people stuff. We're going to make an example out of you, right? It's, look at how he got pushed out of CNN. Of all the things to get pushed out of CNN for, what did he get pushed out of? He got pushed out because he said Nikki Haley was past her prime. And he wasn't talking about her looks. He was talking about her political career. Because remember, Nikki Haley said that, Joe Biden needed to step down and Kamala needed to go because politically they needed some new energy, some new faces, the next generation, some younger people. And Donna's like, well, you ain't nobody spring chicken yourself. If anything, you need to go too, thin lips. And so instead, it turned into, oh no, he's attacking a woman's looks and a woman's beauty. And so next thing you know, he's out at CNN. They made an example out of him. And so I think his switch up and him going and shifting into more so calling out the nonsense that takes place, they're using that as an example to say, okay, well, we're going to really make sure you learn your lesson now. You don't get to talk anymore. And I've always said, when you tap dance and play into that silliness, yeah, you benefit. You make some nice money, because listen, there's money to be made from grifting. But understand, when you finally see the light and you start acting like you got some sense and you start calling out the nonsense, you start trying to do right by people, oh, they're going to make sure that they make an example out of you. That's what they're kind of doing with him right now. So we'll see where that goes. I think the charges, I don't really see this going too well in a court, because at the time, even with the indicting judges, the judges kept saying, no, there's nothing to really charge him on. We're not going to do this. And so Bondi and them just decided, we're going to find a way to charge this man and the other three. And they kind of just trumped up the charges. And so we'll see where this goes in a court. I don't know how far this is going to go. Right. So there's that. Quickly, because I already told you, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this Epstein file stuff on this channel, because I don't want that kind of energy coming to this channel. Plus, YouTube is already doing enough with a lot of folks out here. I'll say this. There's been 3 million new documents that were released. And the thing that I will say is, where do I even start? Let me pull up a thing I want to share. Let me just read this segment here before I say the rest of my 2 cents. All right. Donald Trump is mentioned more than 1,000 times in the 3 million Jeffrey Epstein documents released Friday. After the president initially resisted the effort, while some of the references are benign, others include newly disclosed unverified sexual assault claims against Trump, as well as fresh details about how some of Epstein's victims describe their interactions with the future president. Most notably, the newly released documents contain a list of unverified assault allegations against Trump compiled by FBI officials last year. There are also FBI notes about a woman who accused Trump in a lawsuit of raping her when she was 13, and an FBI interview with one of Epstein's victims who stated that Epstein's accomplice, Maxwell, I always hear your first name wrong, but whatever, presented her to a Trump party. There's no public evidence that any of the allegations against Trump contained in the new documents were deemed credible by the FBI, and the Justice Department said on Friday that the allegations against Trump in the document were false. Trump has long denied any wrongdoing related to the Epstein files or any allegations of sexual misconduct. So understand that these files, there are millions and millions and millions and millions of files. And unfortunately, I think what's going to kind of muddy the waters is there's stuff that's verifiable. There's stuff that has been documented as true. But there's also a lot of fluff that's kind of shuffled in there. Because, again, there were whole segments where people even just tip lines and call and say, hey, I heard blah, 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 blah. It gets documented. It ends up in the files. So now the challenge has become, how do you decipher between what's real and what's fake? And I think that's one of the other things. But the other piece that I feel is I still don't see much happening. And I said this like a year ago. I said, even when everything comes out and this man's name is mentioned and a lot of these other people whose names are mentioned, whether it's some of these other super rich folks, nothing's going to happen. The goalposts will continue to move for all the people who did the performative antics, like, oh, this would be where the buck stops, and that's when I would stop supporting, or that's when he would have to go. We're now in the that's when he would have to go phase, and he ain't going nowhere. And he probably won't. Like, honestly, if that man ends up out of office, it's because he died. Like, I feel like that's the reality. It will be because Father Time called him home, or he stroked out. If you've been looking at one side of that face has been drooping, that will be whatever happens. Or he'll have cardiac arrest or congestive heart failure. It's not going to be because Congress said enough is enough, because they would have done it by now if they were going to get him out, even before the Epstein stuff. A hot mess. So, and plus, I feel like he moves like a guilty person anyway. I wanted to share this clip too. The clip of him cussing out the journalist, which I'm like, ain't no way you're gonna talk to me like that. Let's go to this really quick. Let's turn this back on. Give me 1 sec to share. All right. I know I'm whacking away today, but it is what it is. He needs it. All right.
As a young woman, I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years.
Let me go back.
I don't think I've ever seen the people. Epstein, as far as Trump is concerned, but you got a lot of Democrats out there that are very much involved with Epstein. But I'll be honest with you, you got to get back to running the country too.
On the Epstein files, you talk about Democrats who were there. Elon Musk was also in there, and so was your Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and correspondence that he had with him. Did you read those new files that were published?
I have a lot of things I'm doing. A lot of things I'm doing. I don't know. You mentioned 2 names. I'm sure they're fine. Otherwise, it would have been major headlines. I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
What would you say to the survivors?
You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face. You know why? You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. And you're a very dishonest organization, and they should be ashamed of you.
Y'all let him get away with so much because there's just no way. And they just sit there and take it every time. God, man. I wish April Ryan could still be up in there, because, you know, April Ryan, when she used to have to go against what's-his-face, she was not having it. That time he told her to stop shaking her head. Like, absolutely not. I don't get it. But we will see what happens with these files, because there's more things that keep coming out. Some folks are turning on each other. We know that Bill and Hillary are now going to testify. That may actually shake up some things that I think is getting interesting around here. So we will see. But again, I am just convinced at the moment, I don't see much coming from this. Sadly. When you have a lot of crooked folks in charge, and you also have people who want to be an apologist because they want to hold on to the idea of whiteness and the idea of white nationalism and white supremacy and a power grab, they will let things continue to slide. And like we said, the goalposts will move and move and move and move. And so that goalpost has gone everywhere. Just to paint the picture, Bill Clinton almost lost his position in office, not because he slept with another woman, but because he lied about it. He got caught lying under oath and almost lost his presidency over that, right? It used to be a big deal way back then. Today, that's like nothing, especially when we have presidents paying off porn stars. And so now we have, and this is not just about Trump, this is about every single person who is implicated, who has done something or something illegal or trafficked, all of them, right? Tons of folks, just flight logs and a mess. But look where we're at now, where it seems like no matter how chaotic or how crazy the accusations are, and I've read some of the things, I just don't want to repeat them on here because I'm trying to stay monetized. It's crazy that everybody's just moving like it's a normal day. That's what's throwing me off. And I'm like, okay. All right, I want to shift gears here. I want to talk about this Nike story that I'm reading, because another thing, remember how we've been talking about how eventually the language that we've used to protect ourselves and to fight for our civil rights will start to be used against us as a way to maintain a status quo or as a way to undo any of the progress that has been made. And so I just saw this article. I'm not going to read the full thing. I just want to just share this title real quick if I can share it here. I'm being a real millennial narrating everything that I do as I do it. And that is not okay. Here we go. U.S. agency investigates Nike for alleged discrimination against white workers. Equal Employment EEOC demands firm turnover of DEI-related objectives amid Trump administration's crackdown on diversity initiatives. All right, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has launched an investigation into Nike over allegations that the sports giant discriminated against white employees and job applicants. The federal agency is demanding that Nike turn over information related to allegations, including the company's diversity, equity, and inclusion-related 2025 targets and other DEI-related objectives, it announced on Wednesday. I'm actually going to stop there because that's all we need. All right, I want to go to a clip, and then we're going to have a conversation because, again, the shenanigans always continues. Their work is never done. All right, let's go to the clip.
Andrea Lucas, chair of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Are you a white male who's experienced discrimination at work based on your race or sex? You may have a claim to recover money under federal civil rights laws. Contact the EOC as soon as possible. Time limits are typically strict for filing a claim. The EOC is the federal agency charged with enforcing federal anti-discrimination law against businesses and other private sector employers. The EOC is committed to identifying, attacking, and eliminating all forms of race and sex discrimination, including against white male applicants and employees. Check out eoc.gov to learn more and read our one-page explainer about DEI-related discrimination.
Okay. All right. So first of all, let's set one thing clear. What they have done in these conversations, and I'm gonna have a great time on this subject. This is probably my favorite topic for the night. What they have done with the language is the idea of opening up the candidate pool in workspaces, in academia, and when it comes to opportunities. The idea of opening and expanding the candidate pool is now seen as being discriminatory against white folks, specifically white men. And when we got into day one of the administration, where on MLK Day of 2025, one of the first executive orders that came from Orange Man was DEI, got this, got that, all of that stuff like that. Understand that all of this is strategic, but they painted the idea that white men are victims and that they have been discriminated against. When in reality, what has happened is these companies, these universities, these people that are offering grants or whatever else they offered were opening the candidate pool, ensuring that everybody had an opportunity. That's literally what it was. That's what DEI was. And even when you add the A for accessibility, it had nothing to do with saying white people can't get a job. It had more to do with saying, okay, you know what? This is a company and almost every person in a leadership or management position is a white male. Every person who's getting this and that, they're all white males. And it's not because they're the most talented or they're the most qualified, but they're the people who keep getting into the door because there are pockets of the population that we are not catching or that we're not reaching or expanding to, or that we even know about because we've never taken the time to expand our candidate pool. So I'm going to do a very, very abstract example. All right. Between August 3rd and September 30th of 2004, there was a cool little TV show called American Idol that hosted auditions. All right. And the auditions started in LA. And they did audition after audition after audition after audition and got all these people and so on and so forth, and didn't quite find everything they were looking for yet. And so they decided, well, maybe we need to expand beyond just LA. Why don't we take it to different places? And so next thing you know, they go to New York. And they do audition and audition and audition and audition. And they audition person after person after person. And then finally, when they get to person 34,403, her name was Jennifer Hudson. Right? Again, that number, 34,403, and not in LA. That was Jennifer Hudson. But it goes even further because then the person 34,572 auditioned in Atlanta. Right? And guess who that person was? Fantasia Barrino. That season, they had 80,000 people audition, the most they ever had before. One of the reasons why season 3 of something like an American Idol was one of the more better seasons and had a really, really good pool of talent was because they expanded the talent pool. The auditions went to multiple cities. They went to Houston. They even went to Honolulu, right? They did New York. They did Atlanta. They did all these different places. And they also had Road to Hollywood auditions where they had special cases. Jennifer Hudson was one of the special cases. And so, again, the point that's being made is that when you open the opportunities, because again, if you're a business owner, if you're somebody that has anything, you want the best of the best of the best. If you're somebody who ends up with some kind of random condition that, you know, science hasn't figured out yet, and you need a doctor to save your life, are you only going to hold on to, you know, the few doctors that are in your city that you know of? Or are you going to expand that and say, I just need a doctor? So that if I have to go to another country, if I got to go to Finland, or if I have to go to South Africa or go to wherever to find a doctor that can do what it is that I need, I'm going to go and do it? Or are you going to limit yourself and say, oh no, absolutely not. Just these ones right here in DC Metro that I know of. Like, that's the reality where we're at. And let me tell you what's ended up happening. This has come to bite a lot of white folks in the behind, because now what's happening in academia is white men are starting to lose some of the opportunities that they thought they had when it comes to academia, because they didn't realize that they too benefit from DEI. So let's go to this piece right here. I'm not going to read the article, but I'm going to explain what it's talking about here. DEI rollbacks may hurt white men's college enrollment and exploration of potential workplace impacts. So you want to know what's actually happening? One of the things that people have forgotten about is that when you're talking about diversity, it also includes socioeconomic status. And so a lot of these schools, the Yales and the Harvards and the Browns and all the big Ivy Leagues and every other place like that, they had so many legacy students and students who came from rich backgrounds where the family paid and bought the library, and the computer lab was named after somebody's great uncle. They had so many white students that were wealthy, that came from backgrounds where they were very affluent, that they said, we have to consider the working class white families that come out of Appalachia. We have to consider the working class white families that live in areas that have high issues with meth, right? Pierce County, Washington, right? They have to go and make sure that we bring in not just the super rich kids that can buy their way into these schools, but we need to make sure that those voices that are unheard, the people who live in these rural towns that are so secluded from everything, where they didn't have the same opportunities as everybody, where they didn't even have, because again, understand there are some pockets of whiteness in this country that are dirt poor. And I hate to use that term, but really when we're talking, there are some that they don't have anything, right? And so they said, we have to include those people. That falls. Sorry about that. But okay, anyway, so but now with that shift that's there, with all of the students that were, you know, always looked over, right? DEI gave them an opportunity to have a chance to go to a Yale. And you want to know who one of those DEI students was? Your current Vice President, J.D. Vance, who, because of DEI and affirmative action and the programs that were out there, he was able to go to Yale Law School, right? So now that they've gotten rid of some of these programs, enrollment is shifting. We're seeing a lot of white males no longer go to college. The numbers are dropping because they forgot that a lot of white males, especially in the working class demographic, are not a part of the elite, are not a part of the long money crew, are not a part of the, oh, my dad invented toaster strudels type stuff. They're not a part of the new money. And so we're starting to see the enrollment numbers drop for white men at the university level. And now this is why you're starting to see the narrative of people say, oh, well, people don't need college, or college is done. We're going to phase college out. People need to learn trades. And it's because a lot of these folks, unfortunately, can't compete. Right? And it has nothing to do with merit, but it has everything to do with the fact that, again, they spent so much time trying to strip away access to Black folks because they felt that, oh, if I didn't get into my program, it's because somebody Black was in my seat. If I didn't get into my program, it was because this and that. And you watch all these different communities all hop on the let's get rid of affirmative action train, right? Including the Asian community. They let Jeff Bloom sit there and get all in their head. Is it Jeff Bloom? I don't got so sick of calling the man's name. I think I'm Edward Bloom. I'm sorry. They let Edward Bloom get out there and lead the charge about, oh, the affirmative action, this and that. And this is why the Asian students are having their hard time because the Black students are taking it, blah, 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 blah. And everybody broke their necks to make sure that these opportunities would no longer exist for Black folks. And not only that, we're not just going to kind of filter out the program. We're just going to cut the whole thing. We're not even going to look at how this works. Just get rid of the whole thing because we know that only one demographic benefits from it, and it's those Black folks. And so guess what ends up happening? You cut all of these programs, you cut everything, but you forget that white people are going to be collateral to this nonsense as well. And now you have this serious issue of a lot of white men who are missing out on their opportunities in academia as well as the workplace. And that's why all of a sudden now we want to all of a sudden go after Nike, claiming that because Nike had a diversity, equity, inclusion program to ensure that as they're looking for candidates, that they're scouting the entire area, that they're giving a chance. Because take note, where is Nike headquartered? Oregon. How diverse is Oregon, right? So they know, hey, we want to make sure that we're giving everybody an opportunity. So we're going to expand our hiring process. We're going to reach out to those people that live out in Alabama. We're going to reach out to those people that live in Wyoming. We're going to reach out to those people that live in Vermont. We're going to make sure that we're giving an opportunity to everybody who wants to work here so that we can make sure that we have a large enough candidate pool and applicant pool so that we can get the best of the best of the best based on merit. They saw that as, oh no, this is discriminatory against white people. They're targeting us to not get jobs. And that's where we are. So I just, the silliness of it all. All right, let me read some comments here. A hot freaking mess. Somebody said, Calvin, we want you to be careful as well. They love flagging people. Yeah, that's why the Epstein stuff, if you want my full thoughts, you better follow me on social media. Calvin, did I see Lizzo's comment on the Epstein file? I saw she was getting dragged for something. I don't know what she said. I'd have to go back and look at what she has going. Let's see. Somebody said, wow, smile more. Yeah, that's about Orange Man cussing that lady out. Poison Ivy said, that man said he grabbed women by the vaginas in the beauty pageant changing room before he was elected. They don't care if he's in the files or what he did. That's what I said. They're never going to care. I think once we get to a space where certain folks just are locked in, because a lot of people have made politics their identity. It's one thing to vote for something or stand behind your convictions of what it is that you believe politically. It's another thing to make your entire identity another person or a political movement, and you wake up and breathe that. Like, I've said this has been a weird era. Yes, during the Obama years, people loved the symbolism. People loved the first family, and people loved Obama. But I don't remember people running around. There was no nickname for Obama voters. Like you got MAGA. There was no, I was about to say Bombas. There was no Bombas running around. Somebody could be a smart act and be like Bamas, right? There was no Bamas running around, no Bombas, and there was nothing like that. There was no, let me put 20 Obama flags in my yard to let everybody know that I voted for him. There was no showing up on Calvin Michaels Live and trying to troll him, thinking you're going to get under his skin because he doesn't have the same political opinion as you. There was none of that, right? Today, people have built their entire identity around either MAGA or politics or where they stand politically, and it's very weird. It's very unhealthy. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And because I've gotten into that space, all logic goes out the window. It's like nothing they say or do can change how they feel. It always makes me think of that scene out of Toy Story. Remember when they go to Pizza Planet? It was Buzz and Woody, and they had got the Pizza Planet somehow. They were trying to get back to Andy, and they end up at that vending machine thing where you move the thing and the claw drops down and picks up the toy. And when they get there, it's all the aliens. Every little alien is exactly the same. And Buzz Lightyear's like, who's in charge here? And then all the aliens point to the claw. The claw. The claws are the claws are leader. The claw chooses who will go and who will stay. Like, when I see some of these folks and the way that they have a loyalty to this man and everything that they're fighting for, I'm like, y'all are. It's interesting. Okay, I remember, DC has like the cherry blossoms that peak and bloom in March every year. And I remember me and Whitney one time, we were out, just, it was a nice day because you get some nice pictures and stuff. Nice, beautiful day. Everybody's outside looking at cherry blossoms. There's this man, this older white man with his convertible, has this big, giant Trump flag. I mean, this flag was huge. It was like, it's like one of the big flags that you put on top of a big government, but it was huge. Like, just picture this whole wall was a flag, and it hung from the back of his car, and he would just rev his engine because he had one of those engines, and he would just keep circling around like the National Monument, the Tidal Basin, the Martin Luther King Memorial. Like, he would just keep driving around as just arrogant as he could and kept revving the engine so everybody could see his Trump flag. And mind you, this was at the time, I think Biden was still president. And it was just like, and mind you, it wasn't even like an election year. It was like 2022 or something. And everybody's like, what a weirdo. Like, it's not that serious. Like, you people need lives, right? A mess. Somebody said reverse racism is crazy. They know what they're doing. Because even when they use that phrase, if you call it reverse racism, that means you understand that the standard of racism is anti-blackness. You're calling reverse racism to somehow try to individualize it and bring it back to you. So you know that the standard technically is anti-blackness, right? Which automatically shows that your reverse racism doesn't carry the same weight and burden that you think you're experiencing as it would do for black people who are on the receiving end of racism. The idea of the term reverse racism just highlights that racism is the actual problem, and that if there's reverse racism, it's an anomaly. That's why I should write a book. Okay. Somebody said, yes, cover schools, legacies are mid. Somebody said, but they do what we as Americanized African indigenous black people need to do, which is look out for our own. I believe that we technically do that. I think, really, I don't think white people do that for themselves. Like I've said a million times, I think the only time they collectively move as a unit is when it's time to be racist. And it's not about their collective being well. It's about them just individually making sure that they're good, because a lot of them will kill their own neighbor for a come up. Right? Look at how people moved during COVID, during the worst of it. People were willing to let their neighbors die. Even the masking, right? I know it was an inconvenience for some people, but for some folks, they were not budging. They didn't give two Fs. People literally had COVID, knew they had it, and still would go to work. They would go and do different things or spread it to different folks. Like, people were literally dying and nobody cared. We had public officials saying, well, we know that it's very dangerous for our senior citizens, but we believe many of them would die and be willing to die in order for the U.S. economy to open back up. It got to the point where you had people showing up to state buildings with AR-15s because they don't like a mask mandate. Not even that you got to stay in the house. Because remember, at first they wanted us to stay in the house for a week or two. It wasn't even about staying in the house anymore. It was just about, hey, when you're in public spaces, until we can get this under control, until we can at least get treatment or a vaccine or something, can y'all just wear a mask, please? That alone had people ready to load up and go on out there, which I find funny, because now when we're literally actually under tyranny and authoritarianism and in a dictatorship, all these folks are nowhere to be found, right? Because they endorse the nonsense. But, so I've never seen them as a collective that looks out for each other as a unit. They only come together when it's time to be racist. So I don't see it as them thinking as community. I see them seeing themselves as like a unit, just to ensure that the status quo stays there. But that whole neighbor sense of community, I don't see it as a thing. You guys know, like, my theme on this channel for the last year has been being in community and having discernment. And I will say the difference between the two populations as far as boom, boom, is both may be in community, but only one has discernment. And so that's how I see it. All right, so let's see where we're going here. Somebody said missing out on healthcare access. Somebody said not toasted strudels. The only reason I came in my head because Mean Girls was on TV the other day. Let's see. Somebody said politics as your identity is just breeding toxicity, because it's weird. You're not supposed to be a fan of politicians and movements. They work for us. Yeah, you can be excited or get behind or want to support a politician, but when it gets to the point where you're a fan of them and it's almost a religious experience and stuff, and now because they love to throw Jesus in there. Oh, Jesus told Trump to do. I was like, y'all are fucking weird. It's getting very weird around here. Cuckoo. Like, y'all are really losing it. And I always love watching the clips where they will ask a random, like, Trump supporter a policy question. and it's a really bad policy that Trump made, but they'll say it's a different candidate, and you'll watch that person going, yeah, I knew that. That's why Biden needed to get his brain checked, because that was a stupid idea. It's a bad idea for Americans, and it's going to fall apart. And then the host will be like, oh, wait, I'm just kidding. Actually, that was a Trump policy. Oh, well, we got to really, we got to look at all the layers. These are really complicated conversations. I'm like, okay. Like, remember, was it Kimmel when he was asking all the people, did they prefer Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act? And all those people were just dragging Obamacare. And then when they realized that the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare were the same thing, oh well, God, you made me look like an asshole. Yeah, weird. All right. Let's see. Somebody said in DC, no way. If that's the story about the flag thing, yes. Even though DC's a pretty Democratic-oriented city, you still got Trumpers out here. I see them all the time. Maybe out here confident. Somebody said, but Calvin, to keep us from gaining, they'll come together. Now, see that you cooking with that part. Yeah, that's actually we're here. Yeah, they will do everything in their power. Like when I say their work is never done, and that's kind of been the move. Their work is never done. We never will get the luxury to just settle in greatness when we get there, because they're always trying to find a way to undo it. Right? They will spend more time worried about us than the actual well-being of the country. And that's why where we're at right now. And it's not even just about us anymore, because it's just about everybody who's not white at this point. They will spend more time trying to strip away and go after every other person and every other thing. And this is that, and this is that, and the fraud, and this and this, and not give two F's about anything. We have troops in Nigeria right now. We're still blowing up boats in the Caribbean. We're about to go meet with the leaders in Iran. What else they got going? You got the stuff going with Venezuela. Every time we turn around, it's some new stuff that we done jumped into or that we got into, and still we don't have a great healthcare system, because again, healthcare system already keeps getting cut and gutted, and we saw what happened with them trying to do the shutdown to save healthcare, and we saw where that went. Right? Don't even have real healthcare in this country, but we got time to go and all of a sudden be so interested in the freedoms of Christians in Nigeria, which again, that's a talking point where they just want the oil. We know that. Same thing with Venezuela. They'll do all this nonsense, which is wild to me. A mess. Somebody said, I lost my granny to COVID. The nurse wore their mask on their chins. Pissed me off to see that. And I said this during the peak of it all, where Americans have never been inconvenienced. So it's very hard to get Americans to do anything, because I literally just, I think, posted this on Threads yesterday. But one of the things that I think took place when we're talking 2020, 2021, right? We saw this wave of people who decided that they were going to defy science and logic. We saw this wave of people who decided they want to be contrarian at every corner. Even when things didn't make sense, it didn't matter. They want to be contrarian. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that in that moment, there was an opportunity for people to have a come up or build a brand or build a platform by being the opposing voice. There was money to be made. And so a lot of folks purposely went out of their way to spew out misinformation, disinformation, do all these different things, be terrible people, and just, oh, you don't need this, you don't need that. People literally would go and make content, make videos. Oh, this is a doctor that said, you don't need this and you don't need that. And it's all fake and blah, 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 blah. And we fast forward some years. People made it through, right? People made it out of 2020, out of 2021, out of 2022, and feel like they're a little bit unscathed. And unfortunately, a lot of the practices that became very popular in 2020 and 2021, as far as people who I call like chaos agents, that's now the default for now, where it's normalized. And some people never really grew up or matured or tried to correct the wrongs that they were jumping into years ago because it made them money. And so now we're living in this weird space where, I just saw the story about the baby that died from drinking the raw milk. We've known I'm not a milk drinker to begin with, but there's a reason why they pasteurize the milk, right? Because of all the bacteria. Mind you, this is not milk from humans. This is milk from a cow, right? We're not cows, right? And so they've always had to pasteurize to make sure that all of the worst germs were not in milk. And of course, because everybody wants to defy science now, there's this whole raw milk movement. And so we just saw that story with the baby that died because the mother had been drinking the raw milk while she was pregnant. The baby came out, sick, the baby died. That's where we're at. Everybody wants to defy science, and nothing is a big deal. And it's so funny, even with the anti-vaccine thing, you just watched Dr. Bhattacharya. That's the guy who's over the National Institutes of Health. You just saw him on the Hill have to admit that vaccines do not cause autism. None of them. You just watched him have to sit there and admit that on the Hill. Unfortunately, too many people have already bought into that. And I'm gonna save it for the Nicki part. But we're just seeing a lot of nonsense. Let me read a few more comments before we shift over here. Sam says, Sam's, as a paramedic, I saw endless death. It was just a rough time. Even in the podcast, there's another person that we lose to COVID, which it comes much. We're only in the podcast. We're only in the year 2016 right now. But yeah, there's another person that actually there's a few people we lose to COVID from the podcast. So again, that affected people for real. But this idea of invincibility that a lot of folks in this country feel that they have, it makes people very selfish. And there's a lot of people who have a hard time moving as a unit because it's all about me, myself, and I, and what I can get and get out of my way, unfortunately, right? We had 1 million Americans die, and people, it's not even a mention. Just to paint the picture again, think of just how much we commemorate 9/11. You know, that was a few thousand people that died, maybe about 3,000 people plus that passed. And every year, we do all these ceremonies and flags that have staff, and they read all the names of the people that were in the World Trade Centers and the Pentagon and United Flight 93 and the first responders and this and that. And then the 1 million that died from COVID, we don't even talk about it. Like, okay, well, you know, sometimes life happens. Some people die, right? So it just shows how much we've shifted into a space of me, myself, and I, F everybody else. It is what it is. I'm going to get mine, which is wild to me. Okay, let me get to this lady, Nicki Minaj. Now, I need a sip before I start on her. I'm going to say this. Right? Before I even get into my 2 cents, I'm going to tell the hardcore fans of hers right now. Coming on here and trying to comment saying, oh, but she's counting her money, but she's rich. Oh, but you're talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. That's the win and the chestnut checkers and all that stuff. That's the response I expect from a 16-year-old on a music forum in 2012. Either come with a real response or keep it moving. Because one, I don't really do the stand thing like that. It doesn't do much for me. The insults are not going to really do much. I'm going to say what I need to say. It is what it is. Now, as far as Nicki, right? And by the way, because for some reason, and it's not even just her, but when these celebrities keep getting themselves in trouble or getting into a space where there's a lot of backlash or, you know, pushback about something they've done or they said, people always throw out the wealth that they have as a way to combat the outrage. Like, it don't matter, but they rich. First of all, wealth is not interchangeable with intelligence or integrity. So I don't know why everybody brings up the money situation. And a lot of these celebrities are wealthy now. They'll be broke in 10 years anyway. Or they're broke right now and they're doing everything under the sun to stay afloat and hold on to the lifestyle that you've been accustomed to over the last decade. And so they get the illusion of wealth. And then every time you turn around, it's a new story about somebody who got a tax lien on their house or whatever else. And so when people do the whole money, oh, they're rich, blah, 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 doesn't work for me. Not impressed. It's great for them. I'd love to have it. But my opinion would still stand. So the thing that I said before, like I said, the thing that we've been going with this year and last year is, again, the idea of discernment and being in community. I think as long as you always have those two tools, you can get far. And not only get far, but be supported. Because, again, community supports. And discernment will have you understanding what kind of nonsense not to jump into, right? So when we talk about discernment and community, I think that leads into the conversation of us also having to have that hard conversation about some entertainers that we may like or may love that are out here doing Lord knows what and doing a bunch of silly things. And how do you move forward with regard to where they stand in that placement of value that we put some of these people in, right? And so I'm going to say this. It's one thing to be misinformed and misspeak. You know, because even one of my favorite entertainers, it was embarrassing me a year and a half ago, and I had to come on a live on the day that it happened and be like, God dang it, why would you say that, right? It's one thing to be misinformed and misspeak. It's another thing to know better. And it's another thing to actively endorse and stand behind the oppression of others, and then we don't even really know the actual reason why, right? And when you've lived in a space and you understand how the world works, you understand who your fan base is, you understand who the people that brought you and made you what you are, you understand what their plight is. When you actively go out of your way to all of a sudden dismantle the very guardrails that, would ensure that they had their own civil rights, when you start actively going out of your way to get behind that, and you're appearing at the White House and holding this old man's hand and doing speeches and all this other stuff, I don't know what to. Well, I know what to say, because I was like, okay, I don't really follow her like that to begin with. But I know for people who are diehard fans, they're in kind of a catch-22, because it's like, this is the person that they really, really like, but that person is on some BS. I just, for me, I already said before, I think she got a lot going on. I said that a few lives ago. Y'all tried to fight me because I was like, I think just from what I've seen, I see signs of like a schizophrenia thing, but I still think politically she always felt that way anyway. But I'm going to just stick to the politics. My thing is, I'm not even really sure what her goal is here. Now, some people are saying, oh, well, it's because, she's not a citizen. So she is, trying to secure her citizenship, or the situation with her brother or her husband and all the other stuff. I guess I'm just going to say this. That woman is being used, and it's not because they respect her, but it's because they feel that her presence and who she is going to somehow reel in the rest of Black folks to get on board with the MAGA train and everything that's happening. And to me, that is wild, because the reality is most people aren't looking to celebrities when it comes to their livelihood or their politics. Are there going to be some who kind of are the anomalies? Because, yeah, I've seen some posts where even some of her fans like, hey, guys, I just registered as a Republican because I don't like the way that, I was like, okay, whatever, cool. I guess, enjoy. Right? Most people aren't looking to celebrities for the political anything, because we all, at this point, understand celebrities are very unserious. But my thing is this. If you've been paying attention, there's always a pattern with how this goes. And unfortunately, at some point, she is going to get chewed up and spit out like they do with every Black person that tap dances. And so we've seen so many who've gone down this route. We've seen some literally die and not even be mentioned. Herman Cain, right? Herman Cain was going to run for office. He did all that tap dancing and aligned with a whole lot of white nationalist policies and everything else like that. Went to the Trump rally and died from COVID. Trump has yet to ever even mention this man's name. Paris Denard used to be on CNN, tap dancing, doing everything under the sun, trying to justify everything that happens to Black people collectively. And then as soon as there was an allegation that came, where is he now? They got rid of him real quick. Where's Herschel Walker? The guy that was supposed to run against, whatchamacallit, who's the Warnock in Georgia and lost, right? We have not seen him since. Diamond and Silk. They did all that stumping for Trump. And even with all that, they didn't even get a good payout. They were sharing a 1-bedroom apartment. And then Diamond dies. Orange Man doesn't even know who is who, right? And when's the last time y'all seen Silk? Nowhere. And my thing is this. Because just to give context, if you haven't been paying attention, she pretty much has decided to align herself with Orange Man and everything that's happening with MAGA. Her reasoning as far as what she's presented is, well, her Christian faith and her Christian values, which for me, I'm not going to judge nobody's spirituality, but the lyrics ain't matching. But whatever, no judgment. But, so some of the things that she's got behind, she hopped on to, okay, the Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. They got to do something about it. They had her speaking all in front of panels and UN and this and that and third and everything else like that. And I think where she needs to be careful is when things go wrong, they will make her the face of everything. And I'm gonna come back to that. But for me, she has that going on. She's been at the Turning Point USA events. And I've already told you, Turning Point USA is some bullshit. First of all, they like to paint themselves as like a Christian organization. They're not. They have always been a political everything. And then they later added in the Christianity aspect because they knew that that's something that could pull people in. And then in the last few years, all of a sudden they throw Jesus in there. So they'll say all this racist stuff, all this white nationalist stuff, all this great replacement theory stuff, all this, anti-Black, anti-Muslim, anti-brown, anti-disabled, anti-this. We have superior genetics. Black, these groups are inferior. These groups can't do this. These groups, they'll say all that horrible stuff and then sprinkle a little bit of Jesus on the top and pass it off as being Christianity. And then they'll take a scripture and utilize it to justify whatever it is that they say. But no, so she's going to the Turning Point USA events and she's said all these different things. And I'm just like, what is, I hope it is worth it over there. And the sad part for me is she don't even look happy doing it. As I watched her at one of the events where Trump was doing a joke about how much money she had, she looked so uncomfortable. Like you could just from me watching, it looked like even the laughs and stuff were like very forced. Like, okay, I'm gonna convince myself that I'm having a good time. It's kind of like Amber Rose when she was speaking at the GOP convention and she went up there with that third grade level speech. And I was like, y'all out here you're doing a lot. And so the thing that I'll say, because I get it, people are going to say it's politics. People can kind of stand where they stand. But when you're watching, because again, this is not normal times. You know, if this were like 2012 and she was back in Romney or something, I'd be annoyed. But it would be very different. What we're witnessing right now is not even U.S. politics. We're literally watching the country be taken over by some lunatic and everything that's anti-Black and everything that you can think of that is just terrible for everybody except white men. This woman is not even a citizen and is out here playing silly games. Can't even vote and is so locked into what's happening with U.S. politics. And so my thing is this, because people are like, oh, you just being a hater. She's getting on the winning team, blah, 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 blah. That's her discernment. That's the Christianity in her. She knows that the Democrats, the trans this. I'm like, y'all love to use the trans community as the scapegoat for all the problems in the world. Every single problem in the world is the trans community, according to some folks, right? And my thing is this. You sat there, you watched them gut and destroy and take down military memorials that were not targeted, but were there to pay honor to Black veterans. You've watched them go into museums and have to take down exhibits and close entire halls because it goes against the idea of how great white people are. And so any history that correlates, that paints white folks in a negative light must be taken down, even if that empowers the actual community in which it represents. You've watched the stripping of college funding, where colleges were given an ultimatum. Get rid of your diversity programs or your this and that or the affirmative action or you won't get funding. You've watched them gut social program after social program after social program. You've watched the firing of all these Black officials in high positions, whether it be in the military, whether it be in state and local governments. You've watched the whole anti-DEI thing take place. You've watched the federal government purge when we know that 1/5 of federal employees are Black. You've watched all these Black women get fired. The number used to be 300,000. It's way past that now. We've watched what's happening with rural hospitals as a result of what's been happening with healthcare, where a lot of rural hospitals are about to close in 2027. And that is going to affect a lot of working class and working poor Americans that live in rural areas, and as well as people that live in the inner city. You've watched them gut and cut the summer lunch program. You've watched them cut even the professions as far as classifications when it comes to academia and education, when people can get funding for different degrees like nursing or teaching and different things like that. You've watched all that get cut with regard to FAFSA. That's going to play a role into how people are even able to build their lives or what they can build their careers on. And unfortunately, for the people who are already in their programs, they're out of luck. Right, we've seen that take place. We've seen the cuts to Pell Grants. We've seen the cuts to FEMA. And we know with FEMA is who comes in and saves the day after these natural disasters. And in certain regions of the country that are hurricane and tornado prone, especially the southeast region of the United States and some portions of the Midwest, where there is a large Black population, that's the demographic that's going to be heavily affected. We've watched the gutting of the Department of Education, which also ensured that there was equity and accessibility for all students, including those who are disabled or those who have special needs. The conversation of equity access. We've seen all that get gutted. We've seen what's happened with the EPA. We've seen the regulations when it comes to air quality, when it comes to water, even asbestos in buildings, all that get cut and chopped down. Even the conversation of quality to drinking water. We've seen what's happened with the lawsuits that were coming out of Cancer Alley and how deregulation has now made it so that they can continue to do more different things in different areas that are going to create more cancer alleys. We've seen what's happening with deregulation, and now you have all these data centers that are being built in Black neighborhoods. We've talked about Memphis before, but it's not just Memphis. They're doing it everywhere that you can think of. We've talked about all these different regulations that have been gutted that are going to affect Black people collectively when it comes to health. We talked about the different changes that have taken place when it comes to even just safety. We've talked about what's happened when there's the attack on voting rights, the attack on civil rights, and then you still want to rally and get behind that and show up at their events and act like this is all about Jesus? Ma'am, be for real. Be for real. Ain't that many remixes in the world for me to be that delusional, right? And so with all that going on, that's what you want to get behind. And the other thing too, they do this thing where they will do every racist thing in the world, but then play in your face and pretend that they're trying to help you out. Remember when Trump did the thing with the Democrats where he was like, you know, for Black voters, what do you have to lose? Now, I will say, to an extent, when we're talking about that the Democratic Party could do a whole lot more. Absolutely correct. Wrong messenger, and he has the wrong intent. And what was interesting is as he's doing that speech, what do you have to lose? You're the lowest of this, the lowest of that. Who's the biggest group in there cheering? White folks in there, yeah, just cheering and that's right. Why are you? Yeah. And when in reality, the thing, I'm like, y'all are cheering for this and cheering as if you're making the point that Black people are losing out by staying with this party. But in reality, all of the disenfranchisement that he has just listed is because you all voted and put it in office, white folks. This is what you guys stood behind. And every single time there was an opportunity to make things better, you stood in the way. You stood in your own way against your own healthcare, against your own education, against your own housing opportunities, because you want to make sure that somebody else stayed beneath you. So to sit there and pretend all of a sudden you care about Black folks and what they're not getting collectively, and all of a sudden Black folks just come in and join us, we'll all be good together. No, because now we're watching you guys actively dismantle every guardrail that we ever fought for, and doing it swiftly. Because y'all know y'all got a time limit. This era will not last forever. And so they're doubling down and trying to get it all in before, whatever happens later down the line. And so, again, those people can give 2 F words. And so, unfortunately, she's going to learn this the hard way. And same for those who have decided that, an entertainer is more important than their livelihood. Good luck. And so, again, this whole thing about using the Christianity to justify everything, I don't want to hear it when we just watched. Hold on. You know what? Because I always got a receipt or 2 ready. We just watched. What was that picture I had? Oh yes, this right here. Oh yeah. Let's talk about this, right? All this Christianity and Jesus. When we're out here blowing up boats in Venezuela, 2 of the first people killed were from Trinidad, the very place she's from. So while you're sitting here trying to do all this, all of a sudden I have this moral compass and I'm such a good person, and the only way to get to prosperity and a good living is to get behind Trump because somehow everybody else is crazy. Because I saw her make the tweet about if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be voting Democrat. And she said whatever else she said. I don't follow her, so I get the Nicki information in doses, right? Okay. People from your very own community killed at the hands of U.S. imperialism, not because there was drug trade, but because we already want to take over the oil reserves in Venezuela. We need a reason to get over there, so we're going to pretend that there's drugs. And so we're going to use U.S.-grade missiles to blow up speedboats and blow up fishermen boats. People were just fishing, get blown into pieces. She had nothing to say then. Dead silent, but you want to be all on the stage talking about Nigeria. You don't like them either, right? Please. And so I saw her make, that was what I saw too. I saw her with the post that was talking about something about they were flying immigrants in to vote. I said, now you, Nicki. This narrative of thinking that people who are not documented and let alone don't even live here want to fly in to come and check a box and fly back. Make it make sense. Where are all the, my God. Right? And then I saw she was posting a thing about the SAVE Act, and they need to get behind it. Let's understand the SAVE Act. The notion behind it is they're claiming they're trying to save like voter protections, which is some BS because we've already had like voter rights bills and stuff that were put out there to make sure that voting integrity and everything else is good to go. And of course, the Republicans voted against it. We've also seen what's happened with the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. We talked about Section 4 being gutted and parts of Section 2 being gutted. And I'm sorry, Section 2A right now is on the docket, and Section 5 is possibly on the docket of the Voting Rights Act. So we've seen all that happening. But the thing is, the law is you can't vote in this country if you're not a citizen. No ifs, ands, or buts. So this whole performative idea of painting the idea that all these people who aren't supposed to be here are showing up to the polls. Again, people who are undocumented are not trying to be seen. The last thing they're going to do is put their name on some documents that are that official. They're not doing that, right? And so with the SAVE Act, one of the things that would require people to do, you'd have to have either your passport or your birth certificate to register. Let me tell you where the problem falls. One, this is a targeted approach because they know which demographic this is going to affect. One, college students. College students don't carry their birth certificate with them anywhere. Why? Because their mom has it at the house wherever they live. The kid that lived in Arizona that moves all the way to Ohio for college, they're not carrying their birth certificate because the birth certificate is back at home in a safe or something, or under mom's bed, or in the trunk, or in the drawer somewhere with that. So you have all these college students who don't carry birth certificates. So when they want to register to vote at 18, you need that birth certificate and not a copy. You need the official version, not a print screen, not a scan. They want the official one, right? So it's either that or a passport. Now, passports. I think we underestimate just how many people in this country don't have passports. Tons of folks. But the other piece is we also have a lot of older citizens who don't even have birth certificates anyway. Those who were born in very rural towns, there is no documentation for some of these people's births. Now, a lot of that generation is kind of transitioning out, but that's one of the pieces that's also there. In addition, now we talk about married women who they get married, their last name changes. If that last name does not match what's on that birth certificate, you are ineligible. So they got to go and get divorce papers and all this other stuff and all this other documentation before they can register. All of this is strategic and set up to make it harder for people to register and get their foot in the door, in addition to the other things that they've been doing to try to disenfranchise voters. And so I have no idea why she decided to hop on that. But you know what? It's kind of that energy of folks where once they're far gone and they're in their feelings about something, they're just going to double and triple and quadruple down. And I think that's why I got some smoke for her. Because again, celebrities also often do things that we don't like, right? And you sometimes you give them grace, sometimes you like to help them. But when they start doubling down and tripling down and quadrupling down and tenfold, you're really on your own. But like I said, what's going to end up happening when things finally go to whatever they go to, if something is not successful, guess who they're going to make the face of all of this? Because right now they love that she's in the mix because she's a big time rapper. It's going to give some of these people like street cred. They're making TikToks and all this other stuff. We can all claim that we're not racist now because Nicki's hanging with us, right? So we can still put out all of this racist policy. We can still gut all these programs or do these different things that are going to disenfranchise black voters or black citizens, all these different populations. But we're not racist because Nicki's hanging with us and she's cool, right? You know, she bees in the trap, right? And so they're going to have that. But let's remember history, right? Every time something goes wrong, they always make somebody else the face of it. All right. So who remembers this guy? Colin Powell. We need to go to Iraq because we want to take over their oil, but we need a reason to claim that our American freedom and safety is compromised if we don't go there. So we'll use our military intelligence and we'll send Colin Powell to go before the nation and tell us why we need to go into Iraq, because he has footage of the inspectors looking at these different factories and stuff. And there was notion that people were hiding stuff. You know, they were hiding the uranium. So we got to go because there are weapons of mass destruction. New phrase introduced. We go into Iraq. Things are going great, right? You know, shock and awe. You know, everybody's having the time. Yeah, America, mission accomplished, right? Bush was on that ship, mission accomplished. We're about to be out of there. This is going to be real easy. But they kind of forgot that as we invaded Iraq, right? First of all, they didn't even have an army that we were fighting because Iraq already had enough going on. You had 3 different ethnic groups that were kind of technically fighting each other because they were having their own civil war, in addition to the fact that we get Saddam Hussein out of there. And now the government has fallen apart because there's not somebody to really run everything. The war starts to shift around the early spring of 2004, and you start to see the tides turn, especially after what happens in Fallujah, where you see those American troops that get killed and then their bodies are dragged down the street. Now Americans are mad because they're starting to realize there are no weapons of mass destruction. And so as the PR for this war starts to shift, who gets the blame? Now, we still drag Bush and we drag Cheney and Rumsfeld, but the person that they propped up and said, hey, well, this is where the intel came from, we got it from General Colin Powell, right? That's how they always move. But it doesn't stop there. Let's go to another person, shall we? Now, this one hasn't even happened yet, but it is on the way. And it's going to be a time here, right? Because this fool here, Lepedo, Surgeon General in the state of Florida. Now, he has been leading the charge on getting rid of the vaccine mandates for children in schools. At one point, it was just, the COVID vaccine. That's a kind of a different conversation. But now the idea of getting rid of all the mandates for students in the state of Florida. So no measles shots, no tuberculosis shots, no hepatitis B shots for the baby. None of that, because freedom is important. Freedom means more than our actual health. So we'll be free. So at some point, because we're already seeing it happen with measles, and I literally just got the notification on my phone an hour ago, Virginia health officials have identified measles case in an adult in Northern Virginia. It's just spreading and spreading, right? It started over in Texas or Arizona, and it's just started to find its way all around the country. South Carolina is a hot spot for it right now. Measles is spreading. Understand that if we get into a space where every student in Florida can just go to school without any kind of vaccinations for any of these diseases that are also highly contagious, it's not going to just stay in Florida. It will eventually spread everywhere else. And for the people who don't have these vaccinations, good luck. But when shit hits the fan, because right now it's a celebration. It's, freedom, the tyranny. We got rid of the tyranny. Freedom, freedom, freedom. When stuff hits the fan, Lepedo is going to be the face of the smoke. They're going to say, this gentleman here, the Surgeon General, who was supposed to be the expert, the one with expertise on our healthcare, it's all his fault. Because understand, every single time something goes down, they will always blame us when shit hits the fan. They'll prop us up to do the dirty work. And then when it's time for the cleanup, we also got to do the cleanup to get the face and the blame of it. So that's coming. Let's do another one. This is another one here. This is interesting because, they love a good token. All right. Secretary of HUD, our second Black Secretary of HUD in the role, because, the first one was Ben Carson with the first administration when Trump was in there. Scott Turner, now he is tearing HUD a new one, just all kind of crazy stipulations with public housing and everything that's happening. And so as this continues to fall apart, he's loved at the moment. And you notice they never let him do anything. Anytime there's a big meeting, the only thing they let him do is lead the prayer. If you haven't noticed, when they do these White House cabinet meetings and the media is there, they just make him do the prayer and then they push him back in the corner again. So this is the former NFL player that is in charge of public housing and everything else with that, right? Give it 2 more years. Stuff is about to hit the fan because a lot of the policy that's about to be implemented, and when a lot of this stuff in the big, beautiful bill finally comes into fruition after 2027, a lot of people are going to be down bad. He will be the face of that down badness. Even though there's the architect and Peter Thiel and all of them, the architects, this will be the blame. This will be the face that they parade around and say, well, we got our information from him. He said this is how it's supposed to go. Be ready. And even another one, now this one here, this is probably the best example, right? This isn't even the Trump administration. This is the Biden administration, all right? Linda Thomas, for all of the atrocities taking place in Gaza and Palestine, right? What's happened to the Palestinians, all of the bombings and the tearing down everything, she will be the face of every single time where they were at the UN and they had a vote to try to ensure that the people of Gaza could even just get access to food, or that there was going to be a ceasefire, or that Israel would have to stop bombing these people. She, on behalf of the United States, because it's not her choice, it's her choice to be in this role, but she had to make that decision on behalf of the United States to always say no every time. So the face that is going to be there when people remember why their loved ones got blown into pieces in Gaza, this is the face a lot of people are going to remember. They're going to remember her along with Israel and a few other places always voting no when it came to anything that would be a remedy to slow down what was happening in Gaza. Every single time, right? I don't know how she could sit there and be, good luck sleeping at night. Understand that every single time they will make an example out of you. So right now, Nicki is beloved. They got her at all the events and she's just smiling, laughing, having a good time. Don't worry. Stuff is going to hit the fan and they're going to make her public enemy number one. They're going to make her be the blame and the brunt of everything. If something goes wrong in Nigeria and civilians get killed or U.S. troops die, Nicki, some of that's going to be on your hands because they're going to say you went before all these panels and said we needed to do something about what was happening in Nigeria without even having the right information about what was happening over there. And it's not to negate what is technically happening in Nigeria, but Nicki, that wasn't your, you don't have the reins for that conversation. And the intent of what the U.S. is actually going over there to do has nothing to do with the well-being of the people in the regions of Nigeria affected by what's happening. Because again, it was never a conversation of religious persecution. It was a conversation of pretty much rebels that have just taken over everything and go after any and everybody. And there have been Christians who have been collateral, but there have also been Muslims who have been collateral. And so the idea of, oh, well, if we paint it as an attack on Christianity, that makes us look self-righteous. It makes us look holy. And so now we're justified in dropping bombs on the people. When in reality, again, it's just the United States, their way of getting a ticket in to go after that oil. In the same way, they're going to do the same thing for Venezuela, right? And so folks can get as mad as you want, because I know all them barbs are going to be in here having a field day in the comment section. They're going to call me whatever. I really don't care. Listen, if you think, listen, I've been on these YouTube streets for a decade and some change. If you think there's not anything you can say that's going to get under my skin, but enjoy, right? And so the thing is, too, it's not just Nicki, but right now she's the loudest in the room. And so understand, like when I say that conversation of discernment and community, there are going to be some who only use community for a come up And as soon as they get the opportunity for the idea of being an individual, even if it means that other people are collateral, they go and they take it, right? Because one of the things that I do know that she does is every now and then she'll pull the black woman card and say, well, something about a black woman, when in reality, I'm like, a lot of the stuff that you do, and I don't even mean to get into her artistry and how she moves, you tend to beef with almost every black woman on the block. So I don't know how this works. I'm not going to jump into some other things that I really, really want to say because I want to just stick to the main gist of what I want to say. But I'm just going to say, I don't know what the end goal here is. And then they already got her looking foolish because I saw her make the post, or somebody shared the post about her talking about the gold card. Because remember, Trump has that thing where if you pay like $1 million or whatever, you can get the gold visa, and they expedite your process to become whatever you get, right? And so she had posted like, yeah, I got the gold, blah, 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 blah. What did the White House do? Release a statement. Hey, that ain't a real visa, gold, whatever it is. That's just it's like a token, right? It's like symbolic. It's not real. They're already playing in the lady face already, right? So we'll be back here in a year or 2 or 3, and we'll see how this irons out. But again, I don't know what the end goal here is. I don't know what's supposed to happen. Personally, I think musically, that's a wrap. But at the same time, people have selective memory. And look at now. This is the one leg I will give her, because I see the difference in how she moves and how people are treating Kanye. Right? Kanye has done everything under the sun as well, and it's interesting to see how a lot of times he still gets embraced with a lot of his nonsense. So we'll see. I think sometimes even with genders, they will be harder on some folks and let some of these men skate. We'll see how this goes. But thank God my favorite's not out here embarrassing me right now. She knew to be quiet after she slipped up. We ain't heard her say nothing else ever since. Thank God. Please don't say anything else. All right, I'm gonna pause and read some comments, and then yeah, then the rest of this to be centered on music related stuff. Okay. Let's see. I gotta scroll way up because y'all had a lot of comments in here. What up, Latricia Jones, 8753. Somebody said, yes, Calvin, write that book. I got enough on my plate. I'd love to do that, but not right now, but maybe later down the line. Somebody posted one of his quotes, smart people don't like me, you know. And there's a reason why. Somebody said, I still side-eye her about that. I still side-eye her about that. That's about my fave. I was so mad that day because I had just tweeted, like I said, thank God my fave is not out here embarrassing me. I took a nap. I wake up and what is going on? And I had a live schedule that night. I was like, I can't even not talk about this because everybody knows who my favorite entertainer is. They are not going to let me not talk. I was so, ooh. But at least in her situation, she said, listen, I don't even watch the news, but from what I heard, she said her nonsense and we ain't heard nothing else about it. She's not going to these events and speaking on behalf of the White House and none of that. She learned quickly. Just these celebrities will have you looking foolish. Oh, she pissed me off so bad. Made me so mad I didn't even go to the Vegas residency. I'm like, I'm not going. Anyway. Somebody said tokens get spent. Somebody said Silk went back to a 9-to-5 job. Silk never talked. Like Diamond would be the main one doing all the talking, and and then Silk would just kind of echo. I don't think Silk really has opinions. I think she kind of just followed whatever Diamond was saying, because I've never heard Silk really lead the charge. And so I think because of that, that's why they're not even using her anymore. She don't be at nothing, right? When she said her favorite scripture was Psalm 23, okay, that must be a new book in the Bible. Somebody said, yep, the trans community was okay to make her famous. That's the thing. I see it in such poor taste where there are pockets of the population that already deal with enough nonsense. They got enough people that judge them. They got enough people that want to paint them to be the worst thing on the planet. They got enough people that want to condemn them to hell. They got enough people who judge them or outcast them or kick them out the family. They got enough going on. So then when an artist builds a platform off of their backs, and these people or these different collectives of folks feel that they have a safe space in that artist or in that movement, to just gut it all and throw it back in their face and just do it, that is so just I don't even have a word for it. I'd say tacky, but tacky doesn't fall enough with intent and integrity enough for me, because there's people that are well-meaning that are still just tacky, right? That to me was just vile, right? I've seen the nonsense she's been posting about all these different groups of people, and I'm like, that's your whole fan base. Like, wow. Somebody said Flint, Michigan drinking water quality. Cities in all 50 states now have Flint, Michigan light type water quality. That was Grape and Time 739. And what is so interesting about that, and people fought me about this on Twitter in 2023 or 2024, right? The Biden administration had just put out that mandate that every city that had issues with their pipes, lead in the pipes, rusted pipes, they had like a 10-year window to get it all fixed. And, you know, flush all that out, because they didn't want any more repeats of what was happening with Flint. In addition to the fact that one of the things that Kamala did spearhead was the Clean Pipe Act, where they were going state to state, city to city, trying to replace and clean all these pipes. Understand that whole program is once you know who got in there. But when I said when I posted it, I said, watch, people are going to sit here and say that it's not enough. Everybody started arguing me down, like, see, that's the problem. Y'all always be trying to vouch for the system. Y'all want to play it. I was like, how are y'all getting mad that I'm saying, hey, they're trying to finally do something about these pipes, but here's the first step. People have gotten so locked into wanting to be contrarian and be mad all day that even the logic just, it jumps ship. So when there was actually stuff finally being done, because I think what I said was that administration, the previous administration, did a terrible job of highlighting things that they actually did well or things that they were doing. A lot of people just had no idea what they were doing. That was the argument that I said. So somebody was like, you keep trying to vouch. I'm like, we've been talking about the Flint water crisis since 2014, since the Obama era, right? It didn't get fixed during the Obama era. It didn't get fixed during the first Trump era. They were working on it in the Biden era. I don't even think it's still fixed now, but it was like, finally, there was an element of progress. So I'm highlighting, like, this is something I think they should probably size up, because at this point, Israel was already tearing up Gaza. So, you know, the whole political climate was shifting, and it was everybody whack the Dems because y'all are in charge and y'all are arming Israel and sending these bombs to go blow up babies. I was like, y'all better have some better PR and talk about some of the other good things you're doing. But everybody was whacking and fighting me on that one. And it doesn't matter now because that program is done. And so the pipes get to exist as is. So good luck. Drink up. Somebody said, I understand that you don't follow Nicki Minaj because she deleted her Instagram. I mean, if I follow, I've never followed her on Instagram, but yeah, I've never followed her on anything. And like I said, musically, she was okay to me. I did check out her last time. I think there was a few songs I said that I liked on it. I just never really followed her like that, or really like set through her albums and was really locked in. I think she has her moments, but she was just not for me. And it's not saying that her music is bad or anything. I'm not that locked into my viewpoints where I'm gonna all of a sudden act like she doesn't make music that, you know, is catchy and stuff. I did like what was the song with the Rick James sample? I did like that song when it dropped, but all of that means nothing to me when you're on some nonsense and you double down on it. I don't know what to tell you. Good luck. In exchange for tap dancing, didn't they give her a useless Trump gold card that she thought would give citizenship, and they said it's just a super? Yeah, see, wow. I don't know. Somebody said she got paid. She's no victim. She walked in thinking she made the deal. Yes, with the devil. I don't think she's gotten like tangibly paid for any of this. I don't think it's. I don't know what the end goal is here, but yeah. As a biotech master degree graduate, it makes me sad seeing misinformation and anti-vaccine rhetoric spreading when there is. Oh, I saw that the Napier spreading. That's the one. Is that the one that's in India? And measles. There's just too much going on. It is. Oh yeah, Snoop. A lot of these celebrities have been showing they about Snoop, Nelly, all of them. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Oh, guys. Okay. Let me read a few more comments. I forgot. I still got to talk about the MJ trailer, and then we can open the floor up a little bit more. Let's see. Yeah, Tiger Woods be acting a fool too. Somebody said, right, y'all came hard at Randy, but came hard at Janet, but look at Randy. I already told y'all Randy's the problem. It ain't Janet being Janet land. Janet don't even live here. She in the UK eating curds and whey. But Randy's crazy behind. I was like, why are y'all still working together? I get that y'all are brother and sister, but God, please let him go. Anyway. Yeah. Have you covered the Epstein Files release, bro? We talked about some of it, but I don't want that energy over here. Okay, so the cool thing I was gonna see. Okay, the MJ. I'm gonna play the trailer, but I killed the sound and I had to reverse it because I don't feel like fighting with the estate or anything, and they'd be trying to take my video down. Okay, so we know that the MJ trailer is out. Y'all know I've been waiting for this one. Oh wait, is this the right one? Hell, I think I got the wrong one on here. Oh, here we go. This is the one I want. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna just kill the sound. We'll just see the visual as I talk through it. All right, it's playing backwards, so let's use your imagination. All right. This is dropping, I want to say in April, right? I'm looking forward to it. I am anxious to see where this one stops. Based on what I've seen, it looks like it stops somewhere in the Dangerous era. I don't know if it stops at the Dangerous tour. It'll be interesting. Now you have Michael's nephew Jafar playing Michael, right? You have Coleman Domingo playing Joe. You have Nia Long playing Catherine. I don't know who's playing the other siblings really. This will just it'll be an interesting watch. I think the challenge they're going to run into is because so many people love the Jackson 5 TV series, the American Dream series that came out in 92, 93, because that was so well done. I think a lot of people are going to measure this up to that one. And I will say, to be fair, that series was on for like a week, right? Maybe not a week, maybe it was like 2 parts or something like that, versus this movie that's probably about 1 hour and 45 minutes. So I'm just saying already, for those who want the same experience of Jason Weaver and all of them, it's not going to be the same thing. It looks like to me a lot of this will be about his journey to break away from the family setup, as far as like how Joe wanted to run things, and him kind of taking charge of his own destiny. Because the director of Bohemian Rhapsody did this one, I'm anxious to see, because I did watch the Bohemian Rhapsody on the plane. I thought it was a nice movie. I thought it was okay. It'll be interesting. I think, because I keep seeing people post this, that there's probably 2 parts. And depending on how good this one does, it'll play a role into whether or not you get the second part. So I want everything, because clearly this stops in the 90s. I want it all the way until that dreadful day, right? Just because I think there's so much that we probably don't know, even though people think they probably know everything about this man. There's probably so many things that we don't know. For somebody who's been in such a public eye, he was still a super, super private person, oddly enough. So I'd like to see that. Now I'm hoping that they do a great job of like the music, highlighting that, but still having like a story. The challenge that I've seen with a lot of biopics is either the story falls flat because all of the emphasis is on the music and the performances, or the story is amazing, but they don't capture the music or the impact or the performance is good enough. And there's bits that seem like they're missing, right? But I don't know. When it comes out, y'all know I'm gonna be one of the first ones out here with a review ready. Every time, I love me a good biopic, so I've been waiting for this one. This was supposed to come out last year, but they had to push back because of some logistical things and some court related issues. But I think it'll be good. We'll see. If it ain't good, you know I'm gonna come on here and say it. But I think we'll see. I don't know if the entire family is behind this film as far as like standing behind it. I've seen some family members talk about, yay, great, and I've seen others be like, nope. So we'll see how this goes, right? All right, let us read some comments here. As long as it ain't like that Flex Alexander one, we should be all right. Somebody said she's doing all this for gain. It's not genuine at all. And that's back to Nicki. And I don't know what the gain is. Is the gain that you just get what some kudos from Orange Man and crew? Because again, like I said, they don't respect her. She's just the entertainment, right? It's even like I've said this before with a lot of these folks that are in the entertainment realm that get into these spaces, even when they got $1 billion or they're the big mogul in the music industry, the other people that come from long money just see them as the entertainment, and it stays there. No matter how much they bring in, no matter how big their mansions are, or how big the yachts are, they still only see them as the entertainment. They don't see them as an equal. They don't see them as a power player. So we'll see where that goes. I don't know what she's gaining, but I know what she's lost. My attention. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, does anybody know why she's body shaming Lizzo? Why Lizzo be catching? Okay. Yep. One to talk, first of all, but like, all right. Somebody said they think Jafar is doing a good job. He kind of favors his uncle a little bit, so I think that helps a little bit too. All right. Somebody said Paris Jackson said they made up a lot of lies. Oh, we'll see. Yeah, Raven 940. That's what I was hearing too. I kept hearing that it was going to be 2 parts. Have I seen Wonder Man? No. The last movie I saw, I just saw Mercy this past week. I saw Mercy. Before that, I saw, what was it? The Blind Wired, the one with Coleman Domingo was in that one too. It's the one with the guy. It's based on a true story where the guy, he was mad at the banking system because they scammed him when he was trying to build a shopping center. So he ended up taking the banker's son hostage. I don't remember what it's called. And then I can't spoil the movie, but I saw that. And then before that, I think I saw Roofman. And there's another movie, I forgot the name of it, but it's with the guy that's the Indian actor, where he switches places with the really, really wealthy guy, and like their bodies switch, and he's really, I forgot. Yeah, I be in the movies like every other weekend. If it's one thing, I'm gonna go to a movie. I just always like to watch and kind of see where everybody's like creative space is. No, I have not seen what is it, Wonder Man? I haven't seen that one. Somebody says, "Sir, Nicki wants a political position, perhaps something in Trinidad." I don't think she wants that, to be honest. I don't know what she wants, but I don't think it's that. And I do wonder what the people of Trinidad feel about how she's moving right now. Because like those ambassador positions and stuff, they're a lot of that is symbolic, right? It's like what Herschel Walker is, the ambassador to the Bahamas or something. Yeah, okay. Calvin, would you ever find a way to meet Janet, like spend money to be in the front row? I don't pay for meet and greets, but no, I mean, if I ever I'd buy a front row seat, but I don't like front row seats at the concert because then you can't see the full stage. After like the closest I want to be is like 5th and 6th row. 3rd row, because I've done 3rd row before, and I was like trying to see the whole stage. I like the front because the celebrities right there, but I've noticed that when you're a little bit further back, you really can see the full everything. I like that about shows, but yeah, I don't pay to meet celebrities. She's still a fave, but I'm never paying to meet somebody. Yeah, sorry. Sexy Red was performing at some right wing. She's another one. Listen, folks are gonna do what they do. I just say, remember how everybody moved in this era. Remember how everybody moved and what they got behind. Because when this shit, when this era, finally dies out, folks are gonna have revisionist history. There's gonna be folks who used to walk around with all kind of maggots, and all of a sudden they never stood behind the guy. There's folks who I just saw the clip of the guy that went and bothered those high schoolers that did the walkout about ICE, and then he went and tried to fight the high schoolers and then got beat up. Folks like that. You're going to see folks like that who are like, oh, I always supported the right to people to use their First Amendment opportunities and constitutional rights. Like, people are going to start rewriting history in the same way that they're trying to do it January 6th. Like, we didn't watch it in real time. They were just, having a peaceful protest. Have I released any new music lately? Nope, not yet. Maybe sister has a different worldview than you. Is it a crime? But here's the thing. It's not about worldview, because that's another thing. People always keep saying different views. It's fine to have your worldview, but she's actively utilizing her worldview to instill power into what it is that she now believes in, which now disenfranchises different populations of people. That's different. Like, there's folks who are going to have whatever worldview they have. And again, this whole idea of agree to disagree, that falls out the window when it infringes upon the rights of somebody else. If your view or how you want to see things infringes upon my rights of how I exist, then no, it's not just a worldview. It's you actively putting that thought to power and utilizing that power to ensure that whatever it is that you're fighting for becomes fruition at the expense of other people. And that's where the problem is. And so that's why I think when people try to keep giving passes to stuff, that's how we got to where we are now. I think I said this a few lives ago where I kept saying people keep giving an inch to nonsense, and before you know it, people will run a marathon on you. And so all those moments where it was like, oh, well, it's not a big deal, or something, oh, Trump didn't mean it like that, or oh, even with Project 2025, I sat here for all of 2023 and 2024 going through it, telling folks this is what's going to happen, and folks, no, Trump already said he doesn't even know about that. Y'all be doing too much. The fear mongering. That's the comment I keep getting. You keep fear mongering, Calvin. I literally said maybe 4 or 5 lives ago when I saw that they're going to start going to Minneapolis, and I said, you know what? What's going to end up happening is they're going to end up getting some black person. Because I said, my hair is like twisted right now, but when it's out, if I put some juices and berries in it, if I was somebody who lived in Minneapolis, they'll probably think I'm from Somalia as well, or Ethiopia, because I normally often get mistaken for being East African. It happens every time I go out, especially depending on what part of town I'm in. I'll go somewhere and somebody will start speaking to me in Amharic, and I have to be like, oh, no, I'm not Ethiopian. And that's because, okay, curly hair texture, forehead shape, more of the V-shaped face. That's kind of the phenotype that a lot of folks in East Africa tend to have. And so I tend to look like that. And so I literally said that. Somebody left me a comment just going in. So now we making up hypotheticals. That's the problem. Y'all fear monger, blah, 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 blah. And then not even the same week, right? You get the Renee Good situation that takes place. And then the Aunt Pretty. But then the black man in California that got killed by the off-duty ICE officer, right? So it's not even about fear-mongering. It's about, at this point, these folks have done every and anything they said they were going to do. And so I always say, at this point, expect the worst of the worst of the worst so that you can be ready for it, instead of always trying to be naive and pretending like, oh, they're not going to do that. That's not going to be that bad. Like I said, I got a family member that drives me crazy because every time, I find a story or an article or see a new document, I'm like, they're about to do this. Oh, no, they can't do that. Yes, they can. What? They ain't nothing else stopped them yet. So this idea of just opinions or viewpoints, I'm indifferent on that, especially when you're a person that carries influence or you're a person that can get into some of these spaces, right? Because again, here's a difference. Now, this is the one time y'all don't see me ever vouch for like a Kim Kardashian, right? Kim Kardashian has somehow, even though I think she might be a Trumper too herself, but she has made it her passion to be in law. She has yet to pass that bar, But while she was on that journey, she saw that, hey, there's a handful of folks who have been incarcerated and are likely not guilty of the crimes that they committed. She didn't have the necessary education to make things happen, but she had the money in the pool to get the right kind of people to work those cases and get some of these people exonerated. And that was the lane that she was in. So there can be power behind some of these opinions or viewpoints when people put some oomph behind them. So the idea of going before the UN, appearing at White House events, let's go to her social media right now. Let's see. What is she most active on? Twitter? Oh, we can go here right now, and I can guarantee you I'm gonna see more on here than just an opinion. I'm just gonna stick to what the actual point is. We're not gonna worry about whatever else she's on here talking about. So if she's on here cussing out, I don't know, Cardi B or something, I don't care. Oh, here we go. First tweet. Very important. And this is, let me see. I just wrote an email to my senator encouraging them to pass the SAVE Act. The thing we were just talking about, which technically will be voter disenfranchisement for a lot of folks. Oh, this is one of her fans. Every barb should be doing this. Listening to Nicki speak about it encouraged me. Okay, action to power and thoughts. The fact that there isn't a rule requiring ID to be available to vote is really not fair to our democracy. Again, now we got misinformation. Again, you can't even vote without an ID, but folks are just, it is what it is. And this person has posted their letter. Nicki retweets it. Oh, she's on somebody's podcast. I don't know who this is. Who is this? Katie Miller? I don't know, somebody. Nicki stands up for Trump against bullying. Says she couldn't handle how he was being. Child. So it's more than just opinions. I'm sorry. If it was like 2010, I'd let somebody have that, but we're past that. A lot of terrible opinions and viewpoints have created some terrible leadership and some terrible policy that's now affecting us. I'm gonna have to go look and see what Lizzo said because I don't know what y'all are talking about. Somebody said, it's funny you still stand 10 toes down about meet and greets. I refuse. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it feels like a more reasonable price, but these meet and greets with celebrities be like $1,000. I'm not paying no $1,000 to meet no celebrity. And then it's you and 100 other people and they whisk you in and you want to take pictures. Click, next. It's like, if I get a meet and greet that I paid $1,000 for, I want like 45 minutes. We eat lunch. We laughing. I need a minute. We got to chop it up. Like, not no 30-second picture next, right? And then if you didn't even have your face right in the shot, too bad. That's the picture you get. Man, absolutely not. And then the security be doing the most. Nope. Let me see. Why would this be anything like the Flex Alexander film when that wasn't endorsed by Michael Jackson or anything to do with the people? Take that. It's a joke. Relax. Y'all be intense on here. Anyway. And now as far as that Flex Alexander movie, the issue they ran into is that the leadership kept changing during the project, so it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Anyway. Oh, halftime. Halftime was Sunday. Yeah. I hope Bad Bunny does the whole thing in Spanish. I hope it pisses off the racist demographic of America. I hope the whole thing's in Spanish. I hope they bring out all the different flags from Latin. Do it all. They have a good time, right? That man is not being bullied. I don't know why they're talking about Trump being bullied. That's crazy. Okay, they said Lizzo was shooting bail for the Maxwell lady. Okay, well Lizzo gonna be getting dragged for that one. That is on her. Good luck. There's certain folks I would never go and vouch for. You get into some nonsense, you on your own. Good luck. Well, not really, but wherever. Okay, listen, I don't know why you think you're trying to outsmart me on my own channel. I know what I'm talking about here. So no matter what you think you're trying to inform me on, I already know about, and I'm just looking at you like you're crazy. But carry on. I don't know if this is your first day here, but we've been doing this. All right. I only speak on what I know. All right. So trying to do the contrary thing, that's not gonna work with me. All right. Somebody had asked me, I think it was in the announcement, what did I think of the Mariah tribute from like it wasn't the Grammys, but it was like those ceremonies before. I didn't see actually I don't think I saw any of the performances in full. I just saw like the snippets and stuff. I mean, she looked like she had a good time. I kept laughing because Billy Porter with that Sunshine Anderson wig on. I'm like, what is going on here? But I don't know. I feel like Mariah Carey's a hard person to tribute because, you know, excuse me, just like a Whitney Houston, she doesn't have any easy songs to sing. Every song, I was telling that to somebody the other day because we were having this conversation about like Whitney, and I was like, you know, when Whitney would tour, there was no cool down song. You know how like when artists have a tour or something, you know, they got the hard songs, but there's normally that song or two where they can finally take a breather and like, you know, just slack off a little bit. I was like, Whitney doesn't have any of those. Like, look, can we pull up? I know we're talking about Mariah, but while Whitney's in my head, let me pull up one of these tours. And I want to look at the set list really quick. Bodyguard, let's do the Bodyguard tour. Let's look at the set list. And y'all tell me which one of these songs is easy to sing. Set list. Let's do, and this, okay, let's do this 1994. This is the South Africa. No, wait, let me do the one where it's her catalog. We're going to do, this is June 94. She opens with Greatest Love of All. That is not an easy song to sing. So Emotional, not an easy song to sing. Saving All My Love for You, not an easy song to sing, but probably easier to sing than So Emotional. I Want to Dance with Somebody. That's not an easy one. How Will I Know? Then she does a medley of All at Once, Nobody Loves Me Like You Do. Didn't We Almost Have It All? Where Do Broken Hearts Go? And All the Man I Need. None of those are easy to sing. Then she goes into I Have Nothing. Not an easy one to sing at all. Then she goes into Queen of the Night. Then she does an Aretha cover. She does You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, Do Right Woman, Do Right Man, Ain't No Way. Do Right Woman, Do Right Man might almost be the one song she can almost take a breather on, but don't play in Aretha's face because she's still getting it in on that song. Then she does Wonderful Counselor, and then she does Jesus Loves Me, and you know her version of Jesus Loves Me is not like the little one you sing as a lullaby. And then she does I Will Always Love You and I'm Every Woman. There's no song in that set list where you can take a breather. Same thing with like a Mariah Carey. Most of her catalog is that same way. So I feel like when people like have to tribute some of these folks, either you got to have some vocal cords made out of just pure silk and gold, or you're gonna be up there fighting for your life. I think the best thing that a lot of people can do is also just change the arrangement. I saw a lot of people did that with the Mariah thing. I saw the arrangements were different, or the songs were presented in a way that you know, is not just how the studio version went. But no, I did see those clips, so those were interesting to watch. I also saw the Brandy ones as well, right? All right, let's see here. Somebody said the bully is being bullied. Somebody said didn't pay anything to meet TLC. I haven't met them. Like I told you, one of my friends is one of their dancers. I'm like, so yeah, next time y'all around, just send me a text. Let me know when y'all in town. Right? Let's see. Yes, your grant has been wished, Poison Ivy. Anyway, yeah, it's funny. Folks like to camp out over here thinking they about to get under my skin. It doesn't work that way. We good over here. All right. What else we have? Somebody said Whitney was understandably exhausted by the end of The Bodyguard. I would have been. And mind you, and Whitney just sings, right? She don't really do the dancing, but the kind of songs that she has doesn't require that. But well, actually, no. Remember the I Mean Baby Tonight tour? She was doing that choreography. So yeah, she's doing some dancing too. Good night. See y'all on the book club Monday. Book club is the 23rd. Zoom party is going to be this Monday. So just to make sure we don't mix them up. I don't want anybody to be confused in the mix. Let's see. Somebody said also Shoot was her breather song. I would have said that, but then the bridge kind of, she got to take it there. And remember when she did the DC special at Constitution Hall, she was kind of sick already. And so she was fighting her way through it. Now remember, there's two nights. One performance of it is really good. The other one, she still gets the notes, but she really had to fight on that one. And so let's see. So how is it determined which songs are easy or not easy to sing? Well, I'll say in Mariah's case, I think the challenge Mariah has with her songs is that because she spends so much time in the studio to make sure that the productions and the songs are very intricate, and she's singing in different octaves where there's moments where she's singing in her head voice, or she'll use that light, airy kind of whisper thing, or she's doing the whistle, or she's belting. Doing all these different pockets of your voice in one song is exhausting. And it's hard to be consistent to do that for like an hour and a half for a bunch of different songs. And so your voice gets really worn. Like singing in falsetto, especially if you do like the very air thing, at least for like men, falsetto with that airy sound really dries out your throat, and really over time is not really good for your voice, but it sounds really pretty in studio. It doesn't carry as well live if you don't have the best sound system. So I think like there's different things that make it harder to sing the song. So I noticed like when I saw Maxwell at the Kennedy Center, no pun intended, excellent show, but he didn't use his falsetto the entire night. And so a lot of the songs that had falsetto, he changed the arrangement and he would sing it out of his head voice, like how I'm speaking right now, or he would belt and sing out of his chest, but he didn't do any falsetto at night. And I think that's because with like falsetto, or even your head voice, depending on how you're using it, once it's kind of gone for the night, it's gone, right? Kind of wears people down. So it just kind of depends. And then like for the belters and the squallers and the crooners, yeah, you can get all the notes out and do it all. But if you physically are tired that day, or you haven't had a lot of rest and your voice isn't warmed up properly, it's very hard to sing a lot of those songs. But for like a song like a Whitney Houston, like a lot of those songs, like if I use again, I Have Nothing, which I think is probably one of her harder ones to do. She's singing at the top of her range for a lot of the song. So I think for a lot of vocalists, if you're really pushing yourself vocally and really testing the limits of where your range can go consistently in a song, that's exhausting. One of the things that Gladys Knight talks about is when she was coming up, she was taught to, she knows where her highest notes are, but she doesn't write her songs or have her songs written for her in those highest notes. There are always a few notes below, because she's like, if you always are trying to sing at the top of your range, you're not gonna have a voice when you're older. And so she could always sing higher. She just never did. I always say, if you listen to her song, I'll Be Standing By, you know it's her because you recognize the texture and tone of her voice, but it's an anomaly within her catalog because she's singing really, really high on that song and like powerful. You're like, I didn't even know she could sing like that. And mind you, Gladys gets it in her alto pocket. So I think it depends. It varies. And as people get older, you got to remember, like, your voice is not going to be as bright. And so people still want you to sing the songs in the original key as they were recorded. And if you follow somebody like a Whitney, you notice that her tone got darker as she got older, right? Some of it comes with age, some of it comes with maturity, some of it was the cigarette smoking and everything else like that. But again, the brightness in her voice on a song like How Will I Know shifts by the time you kind of see how she performs when you get to like the late 90s, even though she can still sing the song in the same key, but the texture of her voice has now changed. And I just saw the clip of Brandy because they're asking her, how come you don't do some of your songs? And she was like, a lot of the songs on Full Moon, Rodney Jerkins had me singing in a higher pocket than I'm comfortable singing in. And that's why I don't do some of those songs like When You Touch Me. Even though I've seen her perform that before, so I don't know what she was talking about, but yeah. Did YouTube censor my other comment because I had a MAGA Turning Point USA where the Klan was rebranded? I don't know. You see, my hands are here. I don't touch anything. I just read. YouTube might have. I don't know. YouTube be doing a lot right now. I told you YouTube be trying to whack me. All right. Oh, okay. Now this Renisha 89. I say the way she slowed down Saving All My Love for You turned it into a breather. And one of my favorite performances of her doing that is Japan from 1986. I mean, it's like a 7-minute song. But yeah, she slows it way down and just sits and lets the song just live, right? Such a gift. We miss her. They said they picked those names out of a hat for the Mariah tribute. I'm trying to remember who all was there. I know Billy Porter was there. Did Coco Jones do something? I can't remember. Who else was in that tribute? I forgot. It was a week ago. I forgot already. There's some other people. Y'all can put it in. Oh, Shantae Moore. Now they played in Shantae Moore's face. They should have gave her a different song to do. I thought, for all of the voice that Shantae Moore has, I don't know why they would give her the Busta Rhymes duet. I know that Busta was gonna come out, but I would have given her something else. Oh, and Jennifer Hudson did My All. I remember that. Yeah. Oh, dang it. That's such a good question. And I should have added it as a topic. I totally forgot. Inside Heike Life 323. Calvin, did you hear and see what Carvel, the analyst, said about Jasmine Crockett and black folks? Yes. Why didn't I add that to the live? He tried it. First of all, if you don't know who he is, he was the strategist for Bill Clinton's campaign when Bill Clinton was running, right? Bill Clinton wins. And because Bill Clinton won, they go to him for everything like he's the expert on voters. And so I saw this clip where he was talking about the Texas Senate race. And like I said, my opinion still stands. Like I said, I think the voters of Texas will choose who it is that they want. But he said some nonsense about, all the people who were not going to be able to win the actual election and all this other stuff. And then he was saying that the winner will be somebody that, what did he say, that can go into a black church and get the people to hum and sway. I'm like, that is a very, very, minus the racist part, a very 1991 approach at politics. If you have not been paying attention, that no longer works. And I think after 2016, we saw that wrap. There is no more just showing up at the black church and trying to speak in the black lingo, and maybe you do a little dance or two, and then you get the black vote. That hasn't been a thing for a minute. So I don't know where he got that from. And the idea of always paying black voters to be the simple demographic where all we need is somebody just to sing, when in reality, black voters tend to be the one demographic with some common sense in this country, based on our election behavior and how we vote. The only demographic, because everybody else has lost their minds for the last 20 years. We were the only demographic that was smart enough to not vote for Reagan. Both times. Said absolutely not. We just weren't a large enough part of the electorate, and Reagan got in there and ruined a bunch of things. We knew not to put Bush in there. Both him and his son. Knew that, right? We've known not to put Orange Man in there. So when they do this whole pretending that black folks don't know anything, and we just got to win them over with a song or two, because now we can go back and focus on the Republican voters that maybe you want to get them to switch it. Get out of here. Like I said before, the way that if Democrats really want to win anything, they need to excite those who have chosen not to vote. The people who are Republicans, they're not shifting gears. They're going to always be Republican. You might get a handful or two that are tired of what's happening right now, but they're going to still be Republicans. They're going to still have their same Republican viewpoints or politics or things they want to stand behind, and they're still going to down ballot Republican everything else. That's what happened in 2020. Yeah, they voted for Biden, but down ballot, everything else was still Republican, and that's why Biden was not able to get into office with both the House and the Senate. Didn't happen, right? And so that's the reality, where it's like, the thing that makes it so interesting is, they will paint us to be the cuckoo group, but like I'm saying, excite the people who have chosen to stay home. You have more leverage with them than the people who already have been voting for 20, 30 years and have their minds made up. And yeah, they're tired of whatever, but they're going to stick and be loyal to what it is that they know and what it is that they understand. So wouldn't it make more sense to say, let's just excite the people who choose to stay home? And then what you need to do is just get a candidate that's exciting enough to get people to want to get up off the couch and go and check the box. Because again, voting is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's literally showing up. And for some folks, you don't even got to get up. It gets mailed to your house. You check the box and put it in the mailbox. That's it. So I don't know what he was talking about, but he can shut up, because he's been wrong ever since he's been getting it wrong since 2012. Every prediction he has been wrong. Every last one. So I don't know why they keep going to him like he's an expert, right? Hang it up. Thank you for reminding me about that. I meant to drag him. Calvin, do you have your own vocal coach or music director? I find many of today's artists sing great, but don't have one, or am I wrong? I did take lessons while I was recording the album, just to understand how to use my voice better, because I don't always have the best technique. But because I don't do a lot of live shows, I mean, I do some here and there, but I'm not on tour like that. A lot of the live related events I'm doing, I'm emceeing or doing comedy or hosting something, and every now and then I'll get an opportunity to perform and do something like that. So because I'm not extensively like touring my music, I don't really spend a lot of time with like voice coaches and stuff. But normally if I'm in the studio, I'll go and get a coach and make sure that I'm not damaging my voice and stuff, and learning to find where my most comfortable pocket is. But no, I think there's a lot of people who, they don't really have vocal coaches and stuff like that anymore because the industry no longer invests in music as far as like the technique and the artistry and everything. And I guess at least on my end, because I was also a choir director at one point, I kind of know certain things, but then I go and get a coach to get those technical things done, right? So unfortunately, yeah, you have a lot of folks who just go out there and sing raw, and some people have never used one, and then there are some who do. But I think everybody could benefit from using one, even if you're an excellent singer. There's so many things that you can learn about your voice that you didn't even know you could do, right? Somebody said Lisa Fisher is their favorite singer that does whistle notes. I love Lisa. I like that Lisa chose art. And what I mean by that is she could have had a booming solo career, but she enjoyed more so being the supporting vocalist for other artists and just touring, right? And so she tours with Tina Turner and the Rolling Stones and all of these cool acts and stuff like that. And I think that's where she's the most comfortable. And some people just, they live for it. I always tell people too, even like me doing music, I just make music because I like it. And at this point, we're almost 10 years in. My first album was almost 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago. Yeah. I make it because I like it. There's no urge to go and get a deal or nothing like that. I just make it because I really, really enjoy making it. It's fun. It's very therapeutic. When COVID first hit, I needed me a therapist because everybody needed one, but all the therapists were booked. So I was like, well, my therapy will be sitting in the studio 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. All right. It took my mind off of all the anxiety of just, oh my God, the world is going through what it's going through and I can't control it. I need something that I can feel like I'm in my own space with and I'm not crowded. Because again, living in a high rise during a pandemic where we all had to stay in the house and everybody was crazy and stuff was going around, I was like, man, I needed something to make me not feel half crazy. Somebody said Foo Fighters. Oh, that is cool. I haven't even heard that song. They said, damn it, it just shifted. Foo Fighters and Cindy Wu did a cover of Mariah's unreleased grunge song. I didn't even know she had the unreleased grunge album until I read her book. Alejandro said, so are we thugs and criminals or church folks? They think we're everything because what is it? Who's the one that said they could? Stephen A. Smith said Trump could relate to us because we've all been to jail. I ain't been to jail. I've been detained. I've been cuffed. I've been dragged and set on the street, but I ain't been to jail. So I don't know what they're talking about. Somebody said that therapy was baking. I like cooking too. Cooking is really, I love cooking when I have time to do it. Did anyone congratulate the late Luther Vandross for his current Grammy win? I laughed so hard. That Cher had me dying. I meant to bring that up in my review. Cher is in Cherland. She said, look, I'm like 80 years old. I have been in this, I'm probably older than everybody in this room. And I have been in this industry since forever, right? Y'all got me out here. I'm gonna do this little war thing, but yeah, Cher had me dying. That was so funny. I love the level of just being in her own world that she's in, right? That was a good moment. That was great. I love that. All right. Do I have anything else on here worth mentioning? Also, rest in peace to Demond Wilson from Sanford and Son, I had to think. Yeah. And then Cher was like, the winner was Luther Vandross. I was like, okay. And then it looked like for a minute Cher was looking to see where he was coming from. I was like, Cher, remember? And he passed about 20 years ago, remember? But I can see that would be confusing. Again, she's not listening to what's current. So when she opens it and she sees a big Luther, she's probably thinking Luther Vandross. Because, yeah. So that's that. Oh, Joni Mitchell was there. Wait, how old is Joni Mitchell? Miss Beat of Black Wings. Let's see. Joni Mitchell is. Oh, she's 82. Okay, so she got about 2.5 years on Cher. All right. Cher got a young tender that keeps her young. Look, a lot of these seasoned entertainers got these young men. They with no judgment on my end. Look, Madonna got one of them young ones too. I think that she's what, a soccer player or something, and he's like 29. I said, all right, y'all go ahead. That is funny. I'm still so mad about my sound on the first half. It messed up the flow here. Messed up the flow. We were doing good, man. I do not want to go back and edit that one. I think I'm gonna just yank it down. We'll figure it out. It is what it is. Mariah Carey and Anderson .Paak. Well, Anderson ain't that young. Anderson should be about 40. So that's only about a 15. You know what? Actually, you're right. That's about 15. Wait, Anderson .Paak is how old? Anderson .Paak is 39. Okay, we're close in age. And Mariah is in her 50s, so about 15-ish years. Okay, you're right. Somebody said Joni Mitchell did Janet's Got Till It's Gone. Janet did a cover of Joni Mitchell's Beat of Black Wings as well, and it was on this Joni Mitchell tribute album. Well, her song didn't make the tribute album for some reason. I don't know what happened. I don't know if that was after the Super Bowl or what, but interesting. Patti LaBelle's man is 40. I ain't no Patty Hansen. Go on, Patty. Listen, as long as it's keeping all these people alive, we good. Because I don't want to be here the day that some of these people pass. I'm trying to hold on to everybody, right? Because it's man, time is flying. Man. All right. So like I said, Zoom party Monday, book club, 23rd, Burning Down Master's House, Clay Kane, chapter 1. All right. Now the same link will be for both the book club and the Zoom party. So you can just use the same one. I'll probably send another reminder by the time we get to the book club. It's not for a while. So, and again, that chapter 1 is like 70 pages. So that's why it's only chapter 1. The book only has 4 chapters in it. It's like 4 different stories. All right. Anyway, this has been good. My next task is to get the next episode of the podcast out. And I've already been working on the next episode of a different thing y'all keep asking for. But like I said, I'm not saying nothing until it's close to ready because I don't want to lead y'all astray and y'all be asking, when is it coming? When is it coming? And then y'all got to wait because, Mariah was 9 months late when Mariah's came out. But just understand, Calvin has a full 9 to 5 and still manages this channel and does the lives and does the podcast and still does their music promo and then still hosts events and then still does their own community work and then still has somewhat of a social life, right? So I be trying to make it work, but it's a lot going on out here and I like to travel. So there's that. But anyway, you guys will really enjoy the next episode. It's going to be a good one of what we're talking about. Anyway, this has been good. What was I going to say here? Yeah, that's it. So anyway, this has been good. I will see you guys probably at some point next week. If there's any other videos uploaded this week to the channel, it's probably a recap of something, or it's one of the older podcast episodes. Please don't get it mixed up with the newer ones. Remember, when we upload the podcast episodes, I don't upload them to YouTube right away. Anytime a new episode comes out, it goes to the streaming platforms first, and then comes to YouTube a few months later. So you can either go to my website to get the latest episodes or to any streaming platform. Anyway, that is all for tonight. Stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so that you can age well. Remember, we're talking about discernment and being in community, right? That's the only way we're going to get through this nonsense. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Good night.